round 2, here we go.
Yeah, and this is our intro. Like I said, like I explained last time, I do casual intros. I don't have I don't have the welcome to this is the podcast shit. We're just gonna go. Except for a few things before we get started. I wanted to. I think we're gonna replace a small handful of some of the spirits on our list here before we get into the aspects, which is our goal today. I've been playing a few more games of Rising Sun just because I felt his placement not necessarily unwarranted, but maybe I don't know if I wanted him that low. And after playing a few, I think I am confident putting him up here more. He's better. He's better than I thought. He has one control card, which is a really good control card. It pushes up to 2 Dahan, or gathers up to 2 Dahan to a single land, and then per Dahan can push 1 Dahan, Explorer, or Town in that land. So he does have some level of control to get things into his Sacred Site lands where he can nuke them down. The problem is having one card of control means that he has to start digging for control cards, which may contain fire, but typically are wind or moon or sun, which he does not care about any of those other than wind to an extent. He wants primarily fire and mountain, which don't have a lot of control without the right elements mixed in. So it can be hard to pick up more than even one other card of control without giving up his ability to use his innate at a higher level. But he is a little better than I thought he is, so I'm moving him up the tier list. He's a little bit better. I'll give him that.
I also have one that should move up. Only one, and I think that its Hearth Vigil should be above Shifting Memory. Hearth Vigil's early game is very aggressive, and he can generally gain pretty quick control of his board from the pure fact of being able to deal damage in the slow with a couple of his powers, as well as fighting before Ravages. I have had really good early consistent games with him versus Shifting Memory, who is spending most of that early game is spent hoarding element tokens
and trying to find his
your other option is a defend mechanic,
which is really weak. Because I think caps at 3 or 4.
It caps at 3.
It's really abysmal.
So that's my only reason. It's not that Shifting Memory is bad. It's just that I think Hearth Vigil is better.
Yeah. Those who are comparing the end of the last video to the beginning of this one, you'll notice I've already preemptively switched these two around. It was something I thought of kind of after the fact, where I was just like, both of these spirits rely heavily on elements, but it's more likely that Shadow will be able to efficiently use his elements without constantly having to reclaim over and over and not be aggressive on the board and putting out presence and increasing his own power. He can get screwed, but then again, so can the Lightning Bird. The difference is that while he is in the process of getting screwed, he's still growing in power. The bird isn't, because it's constantly reclaiming, looking to recover from its mistakes. Or not from its mistakes, that's not fair, but from its misdraws.
Yeah, plus those elemental requirements on its innate
are really steep.
A steep mountain to climb.
Yeah. Okay, so now I think with those minor alterations, I think we're ready to get into the aspects. So listed here, we'll just go in order because they have listed here because why not? First up, we have Regrowth and, I guess Tangle's the second one, sorry. So Regrowth from the Jolly Green Giant. Personally, I love this one. I think this is a great little bonus to him, considering that he puts out so much presence to begin with. This is just gives you a way to put out destroyed presence at a more efficient rate than paying the energy. Well, I guess technically you put out destroyed presence for free, unless the island's blighted, then it costs you the 1 energy. But this is a way to do it without sacrificing the energy cost, which is already a steep price. 1 energy for some spirits is not that big a deal. For Jolly Green Giant, 1 energy can throw off his card plays a little bit because he doesn't have very many card plays and he doesn't gain very much energy. I should say he's got reasonable card plays, like 4, I think is his cap. It's a little low, but acceptable. But when you're only gaining, I believe his cap is 4 energy, might be 5. It can be tough to play 4 cards per turn on 5 energy. Or 4 cards.
Especially if one of those is a major with the average being 3 or 4 cost.
So giving him this power, you do lose his all-enveloping green, which is his defense and eventually blight removal. That's a small price to pay for this because he's already in green, so he can pick up blight removal cards to begin with. And the defend 4, I think it caps defend 4. It might be 5. I don't have his player sheet on me. I believe it's 4 though. I think it's 2 for the first level and 4 for the second level.
I don't play him enough.
Yeah, I don't play. As much as that, even though I know he's the most broken spirit, it's because he's broken. I don't really play him all.
Yeah.
But I think it's like 4. It might be 5 defend, which is fine. It will do a lot more than the average of defend 3 that you'll see everywhere. But it's a small price to pay when you're just throwing out up to 3 presence per turn with this power. And while it initially has the targeting limitation of jungle or wetlands, you need the 2 water, 3 green removes that restriction. And he gets 2 green on his track, which means you need 2 water and a green, both of which come on his innate cards or his unique cards. It does mean that you'd be forced to play 2 of your unique cards in order to get this, but it's not hard to necessarily pick up 1 extra water either at that point, because then you have 3 potential cards you can shuffle around to get that ability.
Does he have a water on one of his tracks?
No, unfortunately he's not. No, he only has 2 green or his only ones. So it's easy to trigger, and the ability to just remove the penalty of putting out blighted presence while the island is blighted, not to mention put up to 3 destroy presence in a single turn. This guy's already just, like I said, he's already just exploding his presence onto the board. The ability to do this is so much overkill. I absolutely love it. I just want to verify one thing real quick so I look over the card. Okay. Yeah, it does not lose him his absolutely broken ability, which means that it's above his initial thing. Because it's nothing but an improvement on him. It's just a better way to play him, in my opinion. It's not until we get to the second one where, for lack of a better term, he's balanced. This is good and bad. Good because, again, he's balanced. It means that it doesn't feel bad to play him because you haven't just guaranteed you're going to win. I mean, in fairness, on high difficulties, even this guy can't guarantee a win. But he swings it heavily in your favor. But Tangles helps to fix that. It removes his card, Gift of Proliferation, which is his most broken thing. And it also removes Creep's Tear into Mortar, his ability to do damage. 1 damage, repeat it up to 2 additional times for 3 uses in total. It does give you access to pretty useful abilities, though. The level 1 variant is a green token, a wild, the best token in the game, as we've said multiple times. That's huge. It can push 1 explorer, not necessarily the most impressive, but being that this is a fast power, you can jump into a land that has a single explorer, push them out of it, and add a green. You're basically Treebeard on steroids at that point.
Yeah. That's the stage 2.
Yeah, that's the stage 2. You can isolate it at stage 3, which means you now functionally get 2 green tokens, 1 that lasts until the end of the turn and 1 that lasts until it's used. And then the fourth ability where you downgrade and add a second green. The second green's icing on the cake. Like, it's not impossible. You'll see the same land appear 2 or even 3 times in a single game of Spirit Island, so it's very likely you'll go through both of those greens.
Yeah.
But generally,
adversaries have ways to get around it, like England.
Yeah, generally it's not that big a deal to have 2 in the same land, because you can always just target it in a different turn to put the green back. But I'm not knocking it all the same. The downgrade 1 city is cool. Downgrading, nice little feature. You don't get any fear out of it, but I mean, hey, oftentimes, especially in higher difficulties, you can win games by simply removing or downgrading a single city, because that's the 1 city you need to trigger the fear victory. So it's by no means a bad power. It's pretty good. I would say it's adequate compensation for losing the ability to do up to 3 damage. The only arguably bad thing is that it does require sun and grass, and under normal conditions, he wants moon and grass, which means that his innate cards, I think outside of the new one he gets as a part of Tangles called Belligerent and Aggressive Crops, he only has 1 other sun, if I recall correctly, in his innate his unique cards.
It's a push effect, isn't it?
I believe so, yes. which means you are going to have to look for some extra sun to really trigger this repeatedly, let alone at the higher levels. A minor sticking point, but when you consider that the belligerent and aggressive crops adds more green, because he wasn't doing that enough, it has the ability to do up to 2 damage. It's guaranteed 1 damage to a town or city, and then the ability to do an additional damage to a town or city, as well as generate a fear. There's some value. It's not a fantastic card. It's good by all means. It's not like a super big game changer, but a very appropriate card. But once again, you lose out on gifted proliferation, so he becomes balanced.
Yeah, I think that actually makes Explorers probably his hardest thing to handle. Which I guess he kind of already had that struggle before, didn't he?
Yeah, the creeps tear into mortars could only target buildings as well.
Yeah.
Explorers have always been his Explorers have always been his big Explorers have always been his big weakness. By adding wilds and that push effect, he actually gains a lot of advantage against his biggest weakness. But once again, I don't think that he can be considered. The Tangles can leave him in S tier.
His S tier.
Yeah, it does lose him his S tier. I think he's probably still an A tier though. He's still exceptionally powerful with this. Maybe not high A tier, but I can probably see him in the lure vicinity here, in the lower echelons.
I think he would be the very bottom.
You think
what Downpour does is so much better than him without proliferation.
Yeah. I mean, proliferation's kind of always been his thing. He does retain his own proliferating abilities, which is very powerful. But I guess the thing is, as we've said before, we value a powerful and strong early game, and this guy will always have that, provided you don't take away his default proliferate card in addition to balancing his growth options. And while he pushes himself into a state of playing as if he were in the mid game while the Explorers are still in the early stage, his follow-up is really bad. Even this is not like great. This gives him a lot more control over his island, so that if he wins, most likely wins the early game, he can sustain that win.
Yeah, because the wilds are going to
keep everything out. So he has a lot of sustain. The problem is that in the late game, he doesn't have a lot. Like if he loses his board or whatever the excuse may be, he does not have a very big presence in the late game. He's never had that, and this doesn't give him a big presence in the late game. It gives him
a better chance of not hitting that point in the late game where you can't.
Yeah, I that's fair. I'll agree with you. He's probably
more of a stall.
Yeah, I still think he's A tier just again because I especially value aggressive early game. Winning your board, but devastating the invaders in the early game before they get to escalate more than once or twice puts you in such an advantageous spot going into the mid game, and he can do that still with this.
Oh, yeah.
He just doesn't have the ability to force other people into that same state, which under his base game, he can do that. He'll win his board, and he can force someone else into a state where they can win their board.
Yeah, and he still has no downside, so it wouldn't make sense for him to move down to like B or anything.
Yeah, still a great spirit. And again, like I said, I think the fact that this upgrade balances him means that for people like myself, even though I still don't play him terribly much, I am more likely to play him with Tangles only because of how broken he is, and I don't like how broken he is. Unless, I'll be honest, there's a few times I've played some high-level invaders, and I'm like, all right, let's wreck face.
Yeah.
And we're breaking out the Jolly Green Giant. All right, next up, we got Fear Guy, yes. Fear Guy.
Are we doing violence or enticing first?
Looks like enticing is the first one on our list here.
Enticing.
Which one's enticing again? Remind me.
It's the reduced damage from invaders and Dahan and target land, as well as a lot of different gather effects for explorers.
Yes, that one. Okay.
It's losing you your consistent fear production in the form of night terrors, which is the gain 1, gain another 1, and gain another 1. For a total of up to 3 fear. It kind of takes you a bit of a more different route. I think it takes away a bit from his title of Fear Guy, but it is still a neat and good effect. Tier 1 being each invader in Dahan is going to do 1 less damage while in target land. There has been points where that has just saved games because explorers go to 0. That one town that they've built now goes to 1. Tier 2 is gathering an explorer or town. Can be good for the same reasons as Jolly Green Giant.
Keep in mind, this is a fast power for those of you who may not be as familiar.
Yes. It is a fast power, which allows you to move that explorer or town that's going to be building and possibly ravaging in future phases. Tier 3 is an additional -1 to the damage that invaders and Dahan are dealing. So you would be at a -2. So Dahan deal no damage, explorers deal no damage, towns do no damage, cities do 1 damage. And Tier 4 is gather up to 4 explorers and towns. So mostly what he is now going to do is he is just going to pull everything into one land and just say you're not going to do any damage here. I don't think you're really losing anything or gaining anything. It's just changing the way you play.
He still requires, as he usually does, a spirit that can deal with whatever the problem land is. In this case, it's generally going to be 1, maybe 2, depending on the situation on each board that he's trying to keep under control, as opposed to before where he's trying to control 3, 4 lands, maybe more. Whereas this one, it does allow other spirits who are going to be doing the damage a lot less. They don't have to be as sporadic around the board trying to cover all these different lands.
Like the sun move over.
Yeah. They're just like, what are the 1, maybe 2 lands you need me to be in? That's where I'll drop my presence, and then when I've got the damage, I'll come in and wipe them out, type of thing.
Yeah, I do think it's slightly worse than base, simply for the fact that you are removing your essential win condition. You aren't getting that fear from Night Terrors. That is how Fear Guy wants to win the game. If you're not getting fear from this and nothing is actually doing damage, it's all sitting there doing nothing. You're not winning the game. You're not losing the game. You're just waiting.
That is a fair point, but I do want to point out that one of the options you do have as him with this ability is you could always yourself grab a major power that deals damage, and now that it's focused in a single land, you can still be generating the bonus fear off of hitting towns and cities. Now, granted, hitting towns and explorers means you're going to be pushing them, which is antithetical to what this setup is doing, but it will still allow you to generate the excess fear that he wants. Not as much, but you still can get, say, the 5 fear that the cities are worth and the 2 that the towns are worth.
I could see that, but
I'm not saying it's the best build. I'm saying that you have options. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily like he's, for the sake of the tier list here, I don't think it's necessarily that he's like dropping down to D tier. Like he's fucking shit now with this ability. It's just a slight augmentation on his playstyle, and as a result becomes a little bit more dependent, shall we say, on damage dealing powers himself if he wants to generate the fear, because he can't just generate the fear by sitting there. He has to be actively attacking the invaders to get that damage. Or they get that fear, I should say, sorry.
Let's rate it real quick and then use that as a transition into the other one.
Fair enough.
Bringing up damaging powers.
All right. All right. I've only played Enticing once or twice. I don't think it's too far off from his base.
I think it's
being honest.
Better than Suncat, but worse than Wounded Waters.
You think so? I think that's pretty fair. Yeah. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's so bad that he needs to drop like desperately.
Yeah. I think it's still strong.
I think it's still really good.
Yeah, it's still a strong ability. It's just what are you trading for?
Yeah.
So those damage dealing powers that we were talking about him wanting to grab. Violence gives you a little bit better option when it comes to that. So the most important part here is 1 to dream 1,000 deaths. Explorers and towns give an additional fear. So now it's 1 fear for an explorer, 3 fear for killing towns, and 5 fear for killing cities. Cities stayed the same. Getting fear for killing explorers, really nice. There's always going to be
Russia to find out.
But the important part for those damage dealing powers is he also gains an ability called Nightmares of Violence and Death, which allows your card plays to grant twice as many plays, but the extra ones must be used for powers that have damage or destroy instructions.
Can I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to point out that is such a unique rule.
The
card itself must say damage or destruction. I don't think there's anything else I think there's a few things that come sort of close to that,
but only like one or two.
Yeah, like even the ones that come close, it's not quite as restrictive as like read the card and then check for these specific words type of thing. It'll be like different keywords type of thing usually.
And as far as I'm aware, if it's say like an or option, I think you can still get it if it's not the damage option, because it's just checking the card.
Yeah, I would have to double check the FAQ, but I believe if you have a push one or destroy one explorer type thing, I think that card is still legal to play for him and use the push effect, even if though that wouldn't be damage. I think that's the case. I do not want to claim knowledge, like absolute knowledge on that. Like I said, I probably have to double check the FAQ, but I believe that is in fact the case. As long as the power reads damage or destroy anywhere on the card.
Yeah, because the exact wording is these extra card plays can only be used for power cards with damage or destroy instructions.
Yeah, I believe the threshold cards might ignore that because threshold is not a guarantee that you will read that text effect.
Maybe.
I don't know. Again, I'm not going to claim knowledge. Yeah. I'd have to double check the FAQ. It's been a little while. But I think thresholds are immune because you don't naturally read those texts when you are going through the thing. I don't remember, though. Maybe I'm wrong. I could very easily be wrong.
Yep. So running this with his Night Terrors, I can consistently on turns 1, possibly 2, and generally 3, hit all 3 stages immediately of his Night Terrors. So it's a lot of fear generation early. If you're just running violence, it still pairs really nicely with enticing, especially because, as we talked about, you like those damage powers now that you're bringing them all into there and you're getting more fear off of them. So I think maybe this helps balance out enticing when they are together and giving you that extra fear for destroying explorers and towns. You do also lose your Dreams of the Dahan.
Well, it's all right. It's a good card, but it's not the end of the world to lose it.
Yeah, and it is replaced with Bat's Scout for Raids by Darkness,
which is a damage card, I believe.
It is, yes. It is a damage card. I believe the first one is like 1 damage to towns and cities per Dahan.
I believe that's how it reads.
And then it has an aura effect that's a push something and gain like 1 or 2 fear.
It sounds very familiar. I don't remember the exact. I know the card by the name and by the image. I don't remember all of the text on it, but I know it. I do believe it is something to the effect of like either gather or push Dahan, fear for doing so, or you can target the land and do 1 damage per Dahan. I believe is something to that effect.
I think so.
It's something very similar to that.
But no, it is overall a good improvement. It puts him a little bit back into that spot of actually being fear guy, because I know that we talked about as spirits got released, he kind of just lost his gimmick a bit. Like obviously he's still really good at it, but
if I may, and you can disagree or have your own opinion, if I may, I think that violence would slot him into B tier, with his big problem being at this point that while he has this ability to play many cards, his ability to generate a lot of fear, he just can't remove the invaders. Still, it's always going to be his biggest problem.
Always there. They're always building and exploring.
But I think he's definitely at this. I think violence does help him out enough. I don't know where I would slot him.
I think if he enters B, he's above Shroud.
Yeah, I don't know where you would think he'd be. I think he does hit B. I just don't know where. What would you suspect? Where do you feel?
Above Shroud.
Strictly, but below shifting?
I think so, yeah. Because shifting can still do a lot of damage once he gets those majors.
Fair enough.
Especially if he wants to just breeze to them. Shroud, the biggest...
He takes a long time to come online.
Takes a long time to come online. Requires a lot of skill. And just management.
Yeah, low skill floor, high skill ceiling.
Yeah.
High barrier to entry.
He's like a landlord.
Are we projecting much?
Like he doesn't want to kick you out because you have what he needs. But he will if he needs to.
The Grim Reaper. All right. We can stop laughing now. What do we got? Transforming from the Fire Guy. I am so torn on this one. I want to like this one. I'll be completely honest. I really want to like this one. He switches out his slow blight removal for what is functionally a fast blight removal ability. Removing blight in the fast phase is, by the way, phenomenal. There are only a small handful of cards that enable you to remove blight in the fast phase. So the ability to like put yourself in a land where they are going to ravage, remove the blight that is there with a Badlands, and then they ravage there and they put the blight back, like, you're fine with that.
Yeah, you net zeroed.
Yeah, the ability is absolutely phenomenal, and it's well worth giving up your innate blight removal, which theoretically, if you get it to its max level, can remove 2 blight, which is cool. Usually unnecessary, but cool when you can get it and can make use of it. And this one also lets you target another spirit, so you can actually remove, I believe, 2 blight in total. If you and the spirit, I believe, both remove blight, if I'm not mistaken.
Would that mean 2 to 4 then?
Yes, you may do likewise. So you can remove 1 blight and replace it with a Badlands, and the target spirit may do another, do it to one of their lands. So it's actually can still remove 2 blight, unlike the other one. Now the fire guy is never going to say no to Badlands. Though he doesn't really actively, at least not from my experience and how frequently I played him, I've never been like gunning it for Badlands. It's always been one of those where I'm like, if I'm looking at cards and it'd be like, ooh, I have one that say, offering grass, no fire and nothing else, but I need grass, but there's a fire one that offers a Badland, I'm probably taking the grass because I want to make sure I trigger his wildfire ability, which requires 1 minimum, which is easy enough.
Well, he generally has enough damage that he doesn't need the Badlands.
That's always my things. Yeah, he generally does so much damage. The Badlands are completely irrelevant. He's not going to say no. I mean, no one's going to say no.
They might be more relevant with the downside to this, but
yeah.
Once we do get there, because I know there's one more.
Yeah, it is a fantastic ability. I do love the ability itself. I was on the fence going like, I don't know if I like this ability. It looks a little pricey elemental wise, but it's actually not nearly as bad as it looks. There's a lot of ways to get around some of the problems there, so it's still a really reasonable ability.
The only outside of elements is essentially just
the only tough one,
Charmander's
sort of
ability.
Yeah, it's basically that. The tough one is hitting the level 3 where you need 1 sun, 1 beast. Because I think if I recall correctly, well, he doesn't have a single beast element in his innate lineup, or a single mountain, but he can cover that one easily enough. Generally, he only has 1 sun, if I recall. I think it's just his gift of flames that has sun element naturally. So it's a little bit of a trick to get to his 3rd level. You either, depending on your cards you pick up, you either have to choose to trigger the level 2 or the level 3, depending on what you do with the level 1. Not the end of the world, but it's really difficult to hit all the levels, and with the first 2 levels just being so much better than the level 3, it's not as likely you're going to be wanting the level 3. It is a nice ability. Replace 1 explorer with a beast is no one's going to complain about that.
Yeah.
But you're giving up to 2 blight removal. Like, I'm pretty sure removing 2 blights and putting in Badlands, it's going to be better than removing 2 explorers and putting in 2 beasts on 2 different lands. Usually, again,
I was gonna say, Russia is probably the exception to that.
There's a few. Yeah, the problem comes in with the fact that as a result of taking this ability, you gain a new passive ability, which is whenever your actions would destroy a city, you instead generate the 2 fear, replace the city with a town and a dude, or an explorer, and then you push both the invaders. And if you would destroy a town, you replace it with 2 explorers and push the invaders. And you still generate the same fear as you would for anything else. So the fear value doesn't change. The problem is you're not removing the plastic pieces. You're just changing the big plastic piece into a smaller plastic piece and then pushing those plastic pieces to a different land, in some rare instances, 2 different lands, which means you're not removing the plastic pieces anymore, at least not unless they are actually explorers, which he can't replace with anything else. So it's it's functionally a really long-winded way of downgrading things because you have to downgrade them in one land. They go to a different land. You go to that land.
And you still get the fear permit.
Yeah, and you downgrade them again, and then Then you go over there again, and you downgrade them again. Now, I've often said that his big problem is that he generally has more damage than he knows what to do with. The problem is that rarely is that damage that you know what to do with able to be directed to multiple lands, or at least in this particular instance especially, able to be directed in different lands after this effect triggers. Because in the event that you're using Wildfire with, say, 3 sun or 3 grass and 2 wind, where you can target all of your lands with Blight at maximum damage levels, this triggers after you assign all damage, which means you'll have hit all the invaders you want with the damage. Then you start transforming them, which means you can't blow up a town, move it to a land that you're going to then hit with the remaining damage to get rid of the town, and then move the explorers, and then get rid of all the explorers. It all happens all after the damage is dealt, which means you have to have a separate damaging power to deal with the town that you pushed, or the explorers. Well, and the explorers. The explorers generally least concern for this guy. He'll get them on the next turn type of thing.
Yeah.
You could argue and say, well, can he just get the town on the next turn? Like, yes, he can. The problem, as we've always said, is you are giving the invaders an out. You are giving them a location to explore from. Now, obviously, this isn't the case when you destroy a town, since it just creates 2 explorers. Only if you destroy a city do they get a location to explore from, if you can't in that same turn at that same time frame, or at least between slow and fast, destroy that town, do they get to explore from it? But the problem is that you're rarely going to be destroying a single solitary town. Even if you're playing an invader that doesn't generate extra cities at setup, even if they don't build a lot of cities normally, like, say, Habsburg, farming colony doesn't build a lot of cities type of thing, this guy wins his board, usually in such a phenomenal state, within 2, 3 turns, 4 turns, which means you're going to be looking at other people's boards, trying to help them out, which means you're very rarely, even if you're playing invaders that don't generate a lot of cities, you're very rarely going to find a time where you're destroying less than one town, I should say. It's not likely. Like, you're going to be hitting 2. You're going to be hitting 3, possibly even 4 cities. I don't know what the average would be. It varies wildly from game to game. But my point is, you're not going to be just destroying 1, maybe 2 cities where you can let that one town slide and get it next time. You're going to be destroying multiple cities over the course of the game, pushing multiple towns, and giving explorers, or the invaders, opportunity to explore further inland, which under normal circumstances you are denying them. And while giving your allies Badlands is generally good, at least as their damage-dealing spirits, which who don't do damage could give a shit, you don't necessarily need those Badlands. You do like the Blight, although there's always ways to get more Blight, thankfully. And, well, again, you're pushing towns around, which, instead of destroying them and getting them off the board permanently.
Or hear me out, play Ocean with it.
Yeah, okay, fair. But we're not gonna assume Ocean in every game. The fire guy. Overall, I would say that this is, unless you got something, I've kind of been fogging this whole thing.
I don't own Wildfire, so I don't really have a good way. Obviously, I can play him on tabletop sim, but he doesn't really appeal to me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I would say he still sits in B tier. He still retains everything that made him good. He just lacks the ability to permanently remove towns and cities. He can only permanently remove explorers, which I would argue
he kind of has a bigger downside now.
Yeah, I would say it probably puts him in this ballpark. I would argue a little better than Shifting in my opinion.
He still has a better early than Shifting. Yeah. Hearth Vigil would do better.
Yeah, I think Hearth Vigil does better. Still B tier, still a phenomenal spirit with this upgrade. It's just, I think the transformative pout nature thing where he destroys town, like losing the ability to destroy is just really detrimental to any spirit, but especially one like Fire who naturally does it so well.
Oh yeah. Well, and like, why would you want to spend more time on your board when you could just clean it out and go handle someone else?
Yeah. It's something he's really good at. All right, next up we have, what is this next one on the list here? Spreading Hostility. Oh, God.
I'm gonna let you do this because I know you got some strong opinions.
I do have strong.
And they are correct opinions.
Yeah, they're not opinions; they're facts.
Yes.
Let's just get it right out of the gate here. This is fucking terrible. I hate this fucking aspect with a burning passion, which is ironic because it gives you a fire element.
It was well deserved, though. He did need it.
Yeah. So, in fairness, yes, I hate this aspect because it is a massive nerf to what I claim as the best spirit in the game. I can understand why this came about the way they did it. The turning your third growth option into gain 1 fire, move 1 presence, then move 1 presence, then do 1 damage at a range of 0. And you can generate Badlands, I believe, too. Your Sacred Sites count as Badlands. So yeah, theoretically, the idea behind this little thing is you can move a Sacred Site and do 2 damage. So you can move a Sacred Site, pop a town, move a Sacred Site, pop a town, move a Sacred Site, pop a town. Cool. That is actually pretty neat and pretty decent. But your energy numbers on your top track are halved, rounded up.
So your highest energy becomes 5.
Like, are you fucking shitting me? Like, you're turning? What are you trying to turn Treebeard into a minor spam here? Spirit? He's not good at that. He has 1 reclaim, but it's after he gets to his 5th card play, and you've taken away one of his 2 abilities to gain cards, so he can't even do like a gain 2 cards, reclaim 1, play 5 cards type of deal. It's really that one is a huge nerf. That's not even a balancing act. That's just a huge nerf. Outright.
That's because he didn't need balancing.
Yeah. But the gain fire element, it feels like this was a method that they could use to balance the spirit, yet make it more, how do I say, without sounding like a super arrogant and angry, pissed off prick here, more accessible, shall I say, to newer or just less experienced players. The giving you 1 fire makes it easier to trigger his punish those who trespass at level 2, let alone at level 1 where you only need the 1 fire. So it's I believe it's meant to help accessibility. Players who haven't really figured out the optimal way to play, who haven't mastered the game at a high level. This is probably a great aspect for those players. It gives them a way to make Treebeard aggressive early in the game, but you give up his late game, and you give up his ability to reach the late game earlier than nearly every spirit in the game. Again, this is one of the very few spirits who not only can proliferate twice per turn, but can do it reliably. The only time he doesn't is turn 1 and turn, depending on exactly the situation, but it's usually turn 5 is when you reclaim. After that, he's proliferating twice. So outside of those 2 turns, it's proliferate twice every single turn. So he explodes onto the board. You could argue that his weakness is that he generally doesn't get his card plays until later as a result of this, but he's getting major powers. He's using major powers.
Doing damage.
Yeah, he's
securing lands.
Yeah, he has green tokens. Like, he has green tokens. He was such a phenomenal spirit. This is just such a nerf. And like I said, I would like to imagine it's because Treebeard, like other spirits, say Jolly Green Giant, who are just really, really good, this was a way to theoretically balance them for players who don't like abusing super broken spirits. But I don't think Treebeard was super broken. I say that because I play high-level difficulty games with him, and while he can generally perform pretty well, it's not hard for a single event card to completely overthrow his entire game strength.
True. You've seen me get my shit rocked playing Treebeard.
Yeah, an event card can definitely throw you off, or
once Blight is in a land.
Yeah, there are things that can throw off. I don't think he was ever a broken spirit. He was just the pinnacle of amazing spirits, and this just feels really bad to the point where I don't even know if I can necessarily keep him. I think he is still an A tier because, again, the ability to just say move a Sacred Site, pop a town means he is playing aggressive, hyper aggressive in the early game. but his loss of proliferation, I think, he does put it at the bottom of A tier. He doesn't lose anything so bad that he would drop to a completely different tier. He just doesn't really compete with himself anymore. Yeah. His base game self is so much better than this. That's really all I can say on this. And
yeah, because he still doesn't have a downside.
Yeah, forgive my rant. I hate this fucking. I hate this aspect.
Is he above Jolly Green Giant, though?
I don't think he is.
Really?
Because both of them have extremely powerful early games, but he gives up his late game to do this. Because you're getting 5 energy max instead of 9. So you're not getting to just decide, I'm going to play 3 major powers this turn because fuck you, that's why.
That's fair.
Yeah, he gives up his late game for a superb early game, which again I value highly. But he already had a good early game, not as good. This aspect does give him a better early game, but he sacrifices his mid game, his late game, everything else in order to get what goes from, if we argue a scale of like 1 to 10, an early game that probably puts him at about a 5. Acceptable. Maybe a 6 in a best case scenario, and now he's up to like an 8. He's a better early game, but that 8 quickly falls off to a mid game that's down to like a 6, 5, and a late game that's even worse. Whereas before he started off at a 5, and 2 turns into the game he was an 8. And beyond that, he just got better.
Yeah.
He gives up way too much, and it's not enough. He doesn't gain anywhere near enough. If you took out the energy halved, I could see this jumping up to more of a mid to high A tier where it could compete with his base self. But I think that's what honestly just kills it, and why he drops so low is having his energy gain. Everything else about it is perfectly fine, except I don't like giving up the 4th growth option. That also hurts a lot. But I think in terms of really what this particular thing kills it is the fact that you have your energy gain.
Yeah, he would have got a max of 5 card plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, with only 5 energy, that's not gonna go very far.
If you took out that halved, I could see him. Oopsies. If you took out that halved, I could totally see him sitting probably around these 2 here, Volcano and Emberi, the Behemoth. Because again, he has a superb early game. He gives up his ability to quickly transition into a mid game by double proliferating, which is why he will. The fact that he gives a double proliferate is why he can never compete directly with his old self. But instead of being here, they have his energy gain. I can't see. Fuck. All right, we're done. I'm sorry. I hate that fucking thing. I'll go on for it for days if we don't get that out of my sight. Hate that fucking aspect.
All right, Lightning Bird. Which one we got first?
It has Immense labeled first here.
Immense. Okay. That is your top presence grants you twice as much energy during the spirit phase. Any ongoing modifiers are counted after doubling. Playing power cards during the spirit phase costs 2 card play. Okay, so essentially halves your card plays.
Yeah, halves your card plays, doubles your energy. It does, when you play a major power, allow you to gain 1 additional element listed on the major power to try, and I stress try, to compensate for your lack of card plays. Immense is bad.
Yeah.
They tried to turn him into like a major power focused spirit, but it's so bad because you need 4 card plays just to play 2 cards. But he also needs to get, I think, I don't remember his exact board, but I think he needs, I believe it's 4 presence off his board to get to 3 energy, which is what you would. So you need 4 presence off the energy track to get to 3 energy, which is actually 6 in this case, and then you need 2, I believe it is, to get to 4 card plays, or is it 3 to get to 4 card plays? It's 2 or 3 on the bottom track to get to 4. You need so much off of your energy track just to make him an efficient spirit. It's just so bad. And he was already a really good spirit.
It's rough.
It's really bad. I don't like Immense.
I feel like there's not much to really say about it. It's just...
I don't like Immense. I'm sure there's someone out there who will claim that we are a bunch of fucking idiots and that Immense is somehow fantastic. I would love to hear that argument. If you are out there and you have the argument for why Immense is good, please give it to me because I have not found it. I've tried, and I have not found it.
Yeah, compared to all of the other options.
It's pretty bad. I think I would put it in D tier because he's so slow with it. He's so slow, and he gives up what made him good, which was his supporting aspect. I put him probably down here.
I agree.
Actually,
you think there? You think all the way bottom?
He's in this ballpark. I don't know if he's.
I feel like Many Minds is still probably not.
I think it might even be here. I'll be
really.
Honest. I think because Many Minds can always move to Han to compensate for the fact that he can throw it on defend and deal with it. Whereas
he's a hefty drop.
But remember, he doesn't. This ability by itself doesn't change the fact that he needs 3 fire and 2 wind to trigger his innate.
That is
true.
And
you have 2 card plays for the first. Until you get to your 4th card play, you cannot trigger that. And it requires a major power to be one of those 2 cards you played, which requires X amount of energy gain. He is super slow with this. It's really bad.
That's fair, because he also doesn't have any double proliferation, does he?
He does.
Oh, he does.
But again, you can bum rush 4 card plays, but then your energy gain, I believe, starts at 1. Means you have 2 card plays at 1 energy. You can't play the major, means you don't get the bonus element, which means you can't trigger your innate. You can go down the energy track, but now you're playing 1 card per turn, even if it's a major. You can't get the innate. You need energy and card plays just to get him to trigger his innate, because one of your cards pretty much has to be a major if you want any hope of triggering your innate ability.
I mean, I think you could get the tier 1 of your innate with just 1 major, but you have to make sure it has fire and wind. Well, it's 3 fire, 2 wind, yes?
Yes.
So if you have 1 fire, 1 wind, you just need 1 wind, 2 fire left.
And he gets
if you have any unused card plays at the end of the spirit, that's what it is. Never mind. Yep.
It's really bad.
It's an interesting stipulation to be like, if you don't play all the cards that you can, then.
Yeah. But like I said, anyone out there, if you have an argument for how I am misusing immense, and it's actually, I would love to hear it, because despite my best efforts, I've yet to find a way to make this good. It just seems so bad.
But yeah, and what is it he's losing for that? Okay, he doesn't lose anything.
No, it just changes the way he operates. It's bad in my opinion. And like I said, someone tell me, someone debate me, someone give me a reason. I'm all ears. I don't think it's possible though. Next up they have is Pandemonium.
Yeah,
this one's also rough. Not nearly as bad though.
It's the same elemental requirements as his Thundering Destruction, yeah?
Minus the 3 and the 4 level, which swap out water for moon.
True, but it's already such a struggle to hit the first 2.
And you're not gonna hit those. But yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
2 fear, nice. 4 fear at level 2, cool.
You're getting a strife.
2 strife is nice, but you, under normal conditions, were already generating a minimum of 1 fear at the level because you were destroying a town. Okay, so this is basically saying generate 1 additional fear and then prevent the town from ravaging, or at least effectively ravaging. But guess what? As we've always said, there's still a town. Guess where the explorers are coming from. Guess what wouldn't have been there under normal conditions. And all it cost you was 1 less sphere to get rid of it completely.
Well, because he has a card that destroys a town, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, he'll still have that.
Yeah, but he could have destroyed 2 towns.
Fair.
And the explorers generally are exploring into 2 lands, building in 2 lands, ravaging in 2 lands. So you're giving up 50% of your power, and the invaders did not match your fucking.
I see the point.
They did not match your contribution to this 401k here.
They are still on the board doing stuff and things.
Yeah, they. Yeah, and then the other one where you get two fear added strife. Well, that under normal conditions it says destroy a city, which is already worth 2 fear. So that one, all you're gaining is a strife. This is not nearly as bad as Immense.
Oh no,
and I don't think it's unusable. I do
this
think
one in
it probably
tier, or you think still in D?
It's in the. It's one of those things where it's kind of borderline. In my opinion, this is kind of borderline. I don't know what you've.
I think below Rising Heat, somewhere between here. Yeah, somewhere in the zone of Rising Heat and the Tree Eye thing from Horizons.
I guess
possibly above or below one of them.
Yeah. So I guess maybe like what? Like on what side of Shadows? Flicker like flames. We're thinking
probably below Shadows.
You think below Shadows?
Maybe. I'm trying to remember everything Shadows does off the top of my head.
So he has Ignore Ravage as one of his unique cards. He has his innate is the Gather 1 at level 1. At level 2, it's Gather 2 and do 1 damage.
Is it just 2?
I think it's one dude, a dude or a town in addition to the previous one, and I believe it does 1 damage. No, I lied. It's one dude, 2 dudes up to a maximum of 3, destroy all explorers in target land. So you gather them and get rid of them. But it's only explorers.
I think I would put Pandemonium under him then.
Yeah. And then level 3 is where he does actual 2 damage.
Yeah. Everything else starts actually.
I don't remember all of his unique power cards off the top of my head, but they're decent enough. Next up, yes, Sparking. Okay, I will admit, when the first time I saw this, I was like, kind of thing. I don't know. I don't like giving up Thundering Destruction, but
you also replace Raging Storm, which is that's the
3-cost one that deals 1 damage to each invader. The one that's basically a major power that does the same thing but better.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I was kind of on the fence when I first went through this one because I'm like, giving up Thundering Destruction seems a little bit iffy to me. But I wasn't too bad. It wasn't too big a deal for me to give up Raging Storms. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with getting rid of that one, especially for one that's cheaper.
Oh yeah, and while it's expensive, you can still eventually get it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say though, this is an interesting one. This one feels again similar to Spreading Hostility from Treebeard, only not nearly on the same level. Because whereas Treebeard was strictly nerfed by his, this feels like just a change to how the spirit functions. Under normal conditions, it wants to destroy things. Thundering Destruction destroys towns and cities. He has his Chase Out the Homesteaders, which destroys a town. This tries to convert him a little bit more to kind of a damage-ish spirit. He gets a card that deals damage, and granted, it replaces one that does damage, so it's unfortunate in that regard that you're giving up your damage power for a card that generates Badlands and does damage. But it gives him a little bit more of an option to do damage rather than strictly destroy. But the big thing, I think, is that the gift of the Spreading Sky, it gives him what he lacks most, which is card draw. Granted, he can target any spirit with it, so any spirit can pick up that minor or mage. I think it's minor strictly. Yeah, strictly minor. So any spirit can pick it up. But generally, at least early in the game, he's going to be targeting himself because while you lose Thundering Destruction, I would argue that the general build that you want to do with him doesn't change too much, which is you want to get enough card plays to trigger this ability, at least at it's hard to say level 3 because technically level 1's the hardest one to trigger, but the third level of it in the sense that if you're going down the list, which is the one that allows target spirit to play a power card by paying its cost, which requires 3 fire, which is similar to before, needing 3 fire and 2 wind even. The only difference is it also requires 1 sun in this case. But you get sun, yeah, you have access to sun. But yeah, so he still kind of wants to do the thing where he takes a little bit off the top track, takes a little bit off the bottom track, and kind of settles into his play style. And this just enables him to do that. I don't like giving up Thundering Destruction, again, as I've said, but this is... unlike Treebeard, like I said, this feels like it's a little bit more balanced in terms of what you're giving up.
Giving up his early game to have a much better late game because it is less damage, yes, but those Badlands are going to stack up over time.
Indeed.
Which is going to kind of allow your damage to scale with the invaders.
Yeah. Like I said, unlike Treebeard, I don't hate this one because he's not giving up too much to gain too little. This feels like a very fair trade. And so I think it's a little bit more personal opinion, which means we're going to rate this and we could very easily have everyone up in flames.
Well, I think it's still below because, as we've talked about, one criteria is having a strong early game. This is sacrificing it.
Yeah. It's sacrificing it for more stability.
Yeah.
I do think it's probably still in the same ballpark, though.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I don't know. It's hard to say that he's better than the transforming thing, though. Maybe he's better than transforming. I don't know. He's definitely not better than Hearth Virgil.
There's no downside to it. Other than just high elemental costs.
Yeah, well, that's true, because the
the
problem with the first one is the fact that he was generally going to be slow, taking 3, 4, 5 turns to kind of get going.
Yeah, but that's not so much a detrimental to everybody. That's more just a detrimental to.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're thinking this part. Is he so good that he'd be up here? Maybe. It's not. I don't know. I'll be honest. I've only played this a handful of times. This is one I'm not the most familiar with. I'm kind of comparing it directly to my experience with the original Lightning Bird as opposed to a lot of the other spirits, because I haven't gotten much other than comparative.
Maybe also above Shroud, but below Violence?
Could be.
Because it is weird, because you can play it support-ish by giving other people powers and the ability to play extra cards.
But you're giving up your own board state.
Yeah.
So that arguably would be where he's B tier, is because you can either contain your board by giving yourself cards, but you lose his support aspect that he's normally so useful for, or you can retain your support level, but you're kind of giving up your board in the process.
Yeah.
I think this is probably okay, right? This is probably
I think so,
fair.
Yeah.
We'll go there. We can change it maybe as when we get to the end here. I think that's pretty fair. Wind. I'm so torn on this one. It's so good and yet so bad. I just don't know.
It pushes him into that you are playing a support spirit role.
Yeah. But the thing is, I don't know if he necessarily needed that. I think the big problem is the power you gain from this. It feels superfluous because he already had the best support card in the game, where 2 powers of target spirit could be moved from slow to fast. Powers, period, not strictly minors or majors, just any 2 powers they had.
Yeah, because this is specifically non-majors.
But it could be their nates or
get
anything.
up to 4 with this.
Yeah.
But speeding up majors is so useful.
And again, innates. So you can speed up innates, you can speed up majors. So
yeah.
Now he doesn't lose that card.
So I guess he can still do innates.
Yeah, he doesn't lose that card, thankfully, when he does this.
He's just
losing
he loses the passive.
He loses his passive, where he can play all of his things as if they were fast per wind. Like I said, I'm so torn because there's plenty to like, but you lose a lot in the process.
I think with a good enough balancing act, it's okay. Like if you're essentially playing 1 slow and 1 fast every turn, but I also don't remember if all of his cards are slow or not.
They're all except for his gift cards are slow, and they have wind to compensate to make them fast.
So I mean, doable.
You could look for fast powers and strictly take fast powers, but
yeah.
Like I said, I feel like this is one where it's tough to rate because you're giving up a lot. You're getting some value. There's definitely a lot of value to be gained from this with 100% certainty. There's a lot of value. I just don't know if it's a fair trade.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's so close to the borderline.
It gives more in terms of effects, but it's sort of a matter of quality of effects. Because, like, +1 range on all of yours and target spirit's powers is really nice, especially if you're working towards building sacred sites for those majors that you're unfortunately not speeding up anymore. But you'll at least be able to settle in one area but still have enough reach. And we have talked about the importance of having your range 0 powers go to range 1. You and target spirit can each push up to 2 explorers from one of your respective lands. It feels a little bit too restrictive.
And it's a little expensive.
Yeah, 4 wind and 1 water for pushing 4 explorers doesn't feel like a great trade. 5 wind and 2 water, though, to repeat all of those effects is not bad.
Yeah, but that's also extremely late game. To get 5 wind on this spirit alone
because you've got to have
5
all of your card plays.
Yeah, I think he has 6 card plays, so I don't think you need all of them. I think he's the only spirit who has 6 card plays at his max.
Yeah, without any like special effects or anything.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really difficult to hit 5 wind on this guy.
Yeah, that is the biggest struggle with all of the original
Yeah,
sort of
I
training spirits is they didn't have any elements in the tracks.
yeah, to help compensate. I don't think he's necessarily, strictly speaking, worse than his counterpart, but I do think, despite that, he still falls a tier. I know that seems weird to say that he's not worse, but why? But I'm going to drop him a tier, just
Yeah,
because.
like Sparking was worse, but didn't drop a tier.
Yeah, like it feels weird to say, only because at this point you're giving up his. Cause I believe. Wait, do you give up thundering? No, you don't give up
No,
thundering.
you give up your swiftness of.
Yeah, you do. So you still have your ability to destroy. It's just, I guess, changing. You can't destroy fast anymore. It's basically, well, you can sort of, but it's kind of a yeah. You kind of can destroy it fast. It's a tough. Maybe
Depends on the
maybe
power
we do.
you're using.
Yeah, maybe we just drop him down all the way to the bottom.
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
I could see that.
We reserve the right to remove these around as we go on. Layer.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, your turn to rant.
Your turn to
destroy this thing.
I loathe Layer. It's probably going to be something you hear me complain about a lot with a lot of the aspects that got Incarnas. The Incarna restricts the range way too much. I don't think Lure does not have a way to move his Layer unless he lets it get destroyed, which then means he's not putting out one of his actual presence on his next turn or whenever you would, if you want that Layer back. It still has to go on an inland board or land. It's Lure, that makes sense. He has 3 less presence than he normally would. He loses his Forsake ability, which I think is the one that adds wilds, or you can destroy a presence to add a disease. I think that's
Forsake, I believe, is his innate, his unique power.
It is
the one
innate,
that the one that grabs
that's right.
things and pulls them in.
Yes. It replaces it with an overall probably worse effect. So at his Incarna, invaders, Dahan, beasts, and presence can't move. They did put a stipulation on here. You can reposition the Layer by adding it with your second growth option instead of adding presence.
Yeah.
But again, you're still...
That's what we just talked about.
Oh, no, I wasn't aware that you could do that. I thought you had to literally let them blight it off of the board. But still, you're losing the same thing regardless. 6 Explorers and 3 Dahan at your Incarna don't participate in Ravage.
Which is weird because you're giving up your ability to convert towns and cities into Explorers, and he can only protect his land from Explorers.
Yeah. So it gives him Society Dissolves at the Beckoning Heart, which is a fast power that can only target your Incarna. 1 moon. For every 3 Explorers or Dahan, you downgrade a different town or city.
That's how they come. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, which means that your second innate, the one that destroys the Explorers, you don't want to use. Because you need them there, unless you're going to hoard Dahan.
Which is technically...
It's
feasible.
doable.
Yeah.
Because he's got
but it's
Beck and Ever Inward.
Yeah, but it's not something you're going to necessarily have a lot of early in the game, especially. It'll take you a turn or 2 to collect enough.
3 moon and 1 wind to gather an Explorer and a town and a Dahan. Explorer or town and 1 Dahan. So it gives him a little bit more maneuverability with that. It's still 3 moon to get it, but... and then tier 3 is 4 moon, 1 wind. Once for every 6 Explorers and Dahan present at your Incarna, you can gather any invader within wind range, 1 land towards your Incarna. So this is not every invader. This is you pick one and it moves 1 space towards your thing, your Incarna. The range that you can target for the land is just based off of how much wind you have. And you need to have 6 Explorers or Dahan to do that once. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to do any of the abilities on your layer card, you're not doing your other innate because you need the explorers there. If you want to destroy the explorers, you're not doing your layer innate because you no longer have explorers to do unless you've somehow managed to accumulate an absurd level of Dahan. Considering you start with 6 on your board and he doesn't add any, good luck. It just feels bad. It's so restrictive. It's essentially an either or that it's forcing you into. The effect doesn't really matter. It would just be better to kill them. It will always be better to kill them. You lose the effect to gain fear from moving the explorers. It takes longer to essentially downgrade all of the things because before you could just go city into 3 explorers. Now you have to go city into town, town into explorer, explorer into nothingness. That's just such a longer process. It's not. I think it's harder to get element wise because I think for moving a city you needed 3 moon, 2 wind, and 1 beast.
Yes.
Now you need 4 wind, 4 moon and 1 wind. So
And
you
6
lost a
dudes.
wind, but you need and 6 dudes. And 4 moon, which I think his moon is in his power card track, his play track.
All of his elements except for
Are they
beast
in the
are in
top?
the top.
Okay.
The beast is the only one on the bottom. The card play.
So it is up there. So there's you still
And
need
moon is
3.
Moon is the first one you get. It's his 3rd one in. It's energy.
But
Moon,
you still need 3 card plays and that uncovered to even get that.
That's a steep price to pay.
Yeah.
And
Versus
card
the
plays
other
are
one
already-
you could do 2 card
And card
plays
plays
and
are
have that
already
covered.
his Achilles heel because he doesn't have any really way to sustain more than 3 card plays.
Yeah.
And
generally I find myself
he doesn't have the energy to
pretty
sustain
quickly
3 card plays without going down the energy. So even if you were to balance out going to 3 card plays and the energy to sustain the 3 card plays, you're giving up your ability. You're giving up your elements on the top track to do that. You're giving up your ability to reclaim. You get either 5 card plays and 5 energy. But if you go into 5 card plays to get a reclaim, that's still not going to be enough to sustain 5 card plays, even if you're gaining the power card every turn. Because you're functionally gaining 2 cards, 1 from discard, 1 from the pile, and playing 5. You're down 3 cards from what you started with still.
Yeah.
Assuming you play all, obviously no rule says you have to use all of your card plays. But if you have 5 card plays and you are frequently spending turns where you're only playing 3 or maybe the occasional 4, why did you go to 5 card plays?
Yeah. Yeah, it is just overall really, really bad. It's just a net loss. I don't think there's anything positive that comes out of this.
Do you think he can still sustain himself, say, in C tier? Like, his board state is still going to be acceptable, or is he so bad that he falls from one of the best spirits in the game to you probably shouldn't play him, generally speaking?
I want to say D tier, but like high D tier.
Is that just bias speaking, though?
It might be. The issue I have is, again, it's so restrictive, and there's so many, like, you must meet this criteria.
Yeah. No, I
and if you lose 50% of what you want to do.
Out of curiosity, where would you slot him, you think, if you were to slot him?
I might put him there. I feel like Many Minds is more consistent than he is with this, because Many Minds at least still gets to do everything it wants to do.
I feel like this is a little biased, but I'll allow it. I don't.
Again, I'm open to arguments.
I've only played. I think my number of layer games is still in the single digits, the upper single. I think I'm at like 8, 9, maybe. So I don't have enough experience strictly with layer to really make a solid, convincing argument in one.
I mean, I've only played 2 games with it, and I'm good. I would love to know if there is a good way to play it, but I don't see it. I feel like you're locked into you're going Explorer Destruction or you're hoarding all of your explorers in one land.
Yeah. I mean, technically, you could do 2 different lands, I suppose. You could have your Destroyer land, like have one land over here that this is where I'm going to keep my horde of explorers not. this is the land that if I want to destroy them, I'll gather them over here and destroy them.
The only card you have to do that is Beckon Ever Inward because you lose your other moving. Yeah.
I don't. I like I said, I've only played it enough times where I have an understanding of how it plays. I will admit it does not play well, at least not what I've seen. I don't have enough experience to claim that it definitely feels worse, in my opinion, than the innate lure.
Yeah. But like lure is probably my most played spirit. It doesn't feel good, but I'm not obviously up there in skill when it comes to it.
That's
so yeah, I would love to know a better way to play layer that I might actually enjoy.
All right, Ocean, because this
we know where this is going.
This is the spirit that needed an aspect.
Sorry, no, not spirit that needed an aspect. Spirit that needed this aspect.
Take it away. I'll let you start. I'll comment after.
So, I'm sure we can all see Ocean up there reigning over S tier. Maybe not all of it.
I wouldn't say reigning, but he's in S tier.
Yeah. Well, what if I told you could make him better? You know those inland lands that he has such a problem getting to? What if you turn them all into ocean tiles? I mean, eventually they'll become ocean.
You're right.
Everything will be ocean one day.
Yeah. This is the global warming spirit. That's what this probably should have been. It's not that deep. It should have been ice cap melting. Melting ice cap.
Okay. Into the effects. So Deep's part 1 of 2 replaces his Ocean Breaks the Shore. Both of his innates will be replaced. I'll make that clear because both of them are going to replace them, and it's just so much better. For 2 water, you can add 1 wake token to a coastal land. For 3 water, you can add an additional wake token to a different coastal land, and for 3 moon, 4 water, and 3 earth, you can add a 3rd wake token to a coastal land. On both of those 2 can be on any board outside of the target land. The first one just has to go in target land. Overall, you don't really know what those wake tokens do until we hit Deep's part 2. Otherwise, they're just going to sit there. Deep's part 2 is also a slow power with a range of 1 that targets a land with your wake tokens in them. For 2 water, you get to do 1 damage per wake token to towns and cities only. At 4 water and 2 earth, if there are at least 3 wake tokens and no towns and cities left, you get to drown all of the explorers in Dahan remaining, push all but 2 of the wake tokens from the land, and then that land just permanently becomes part of the ocean. Yeah, that's phenomenal. You're extending your range, not only. You're getting all of those drowned pieces, so you're going to get a nice big boost in energy. If there's a problem land that you're having, it's gone.
It's not a problem anymore.
Yep. And then 2 moon and 3 water, you get to repeat it in target land or in a land with your presence. So with enough wake tokens and setup, you can turn 2 lands into oceans roughly per turn at a certain point. There's technically a downside to this, and it's that there's now more coastal lands. Scotland has a great fucking time with that. And obviously, if you ever hit the coastal invader card, his board becomes a bit more of a problem, but overall, gives him a lot more range, because again, he's able to push that ocean into the island. I do find generally with this, you want to push along one side of a board and then fill in the middle, to kind of mitigate how many lands you're turning into coastal lands. But overall, his biggest weakness of not being able to get inland has been solved spectacularly. I'll let you insert some of your own comments and feedback there.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think the big thing, as you noted there, is Ocean's greatest weakness. What theoretically would have kept him into B tier if it wasn't for his unique rule, is the fact that he just has such a problem dealing with his own board beyond the coast. The occasional major power, minor power might have reach in there, but generally he can't do that. Now he just goes, fuck it. Instead of reaching in from the coast, I'll just bring the coast to them. Surf's up, dudes. And yeah, so in theory, if he was a B tier spirit, this just pushes him into what the relevant A tier spirit of his equivalent would be if he wasn't an S tier. But here's the kicker to all of this. He still retains the special rule of drowning things that get moved into the ocean. So not only did he not lose the thing that made him one of the most pinnacle spirits of the game, they just made him better. They took him from probably what would be probably the master of B tier, if I could make Fire Guy move, but he doesn't want to give up his crown. And they put him to the master of A tier. But again, they decided that wasn't enough. They left him his special rule, which puts him in S tier. Now, it's so hard for me to put him above proliferation because despite his overwhelming abilities, as we've always said, proliferation is so powerful.
Because you don't need to worry about what other spirits are playing alongside that. Versus Ocean, it's like, okay, maybe take more push effects.
Yeah.
Jolly Green Giant just says, do what you're going to do, but faster.
Yeah. Hey, do you like winning? Did you want to win in a more efficient manner?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I don't think I could personally put Deeps even above Jolly Green Giant. But I will say, yeah, as we put, I place him here, I would say he beats out even Fractured Days, who Fractured Days is giving, just so we have an understanding of where these three rank here between Deeps and all that. Fractured Days was giving Jolly Green Giant a run for his money, and Jolly Green Giant was struggling, basically just waving that flag of I proliferate people as his last line of defense to retain his crown. So understand that putting Deeps between these two, just how valuable that we value, that makes how powerful and how much we value that when Jolly Green Giant and Fractured Days were contesting each other for the top spot, and this guy just suddenly shows up like, I want to be in on this. These three is a very, very tight contention for best spirit. And again, I think Jolly Green Giant gets it simply because he can wave that proliferation flag and go, fuck you, this is the best,
It's a good standard.
Yeah. This is the best mechanic in the game right here. I dare you to be better than me.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to overcome that.
And it's honestly just such a fun aspect to
play.
It
is. Deeps is fantastic.
It makes an already unique spirit that much more. I love
Deeps. It completely that's what I love, is it was a completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
He was already an insanely good spirit simply by the virtue of the you scratch my back, I scratch yours idea of drowning things and being able to go to all the different boards and stuff. And then they're like, well, that's good and all, but hear me out. What if he could also take care of his own board while destroying everyone else's coast? Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous that they gave him that. I love it. Shouldn't have happened, but I love it all the same. Thank you, Greater Than Games, for doing it. It almost makes up for spreading hostility.
Almost. I think it does.
You don't have the love for Treebeard that I do, though.
I know.
You didn't watch your favorite spirit get an aspect that literally just shat on him and everything he stands. Oh wait, you did.
I was going to say lure.
Never mind, you did.
Maybe it wasn't to the same detriment, but.
Okay, sorry. Let's get back on track. What are we doing here?
Haven.
Haven for
river flows.
For river, yes, rivers. Haven. Oh, this is the good one.
Yeah, I'll let you talk a little bit more about
fair
this because I've covered the last couple.
All right. Haven.
And then after this, you get to look forward to the snake.
Don't remind me. Okay, so Haven. Downside, you lose massive flooding, which is a pretty decent card. Deals 1 damage, 2 damage if it's a coastland that you targeted with it. So pretty decent card, but by no means the best card in River's arsenal, let alone a pivotal card even within his arsenal. Just a utility card to him as far as he's concerned. And you get, I can't believe they did this, but they gave one of the low complexity base game spirits a second innate. This doesn't simply replace it. He actively has a second innate. And damn, it's pretty good.
Does he lose anything for it?
Massive flooding.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, massive. Oh wait, no, this is not the card I'm thinking of. I just realized massive flooding is his innate ability. No, what's the one that replaces? This is Sunshine. The one. Okay, sorry, I'm thinking Sunshine. I got the wrong card.
You got too excited. It's still a good one.
It is still a good one. It's just not the one I was thinking of. All right, never mind. This is not the one that gives him a second innate. He loses his first innate. I'm completely on the wrong aspect here. I'm so excited to talk about the other one because it's really good. Okay, so he replaces massive flooding, which is a really good power, with this one. Fast, which is better than the last one, which was slow. Sort of. Slow push is always nice because you can push explorers off before they build. Does require a sacred site, but that's not hard for Rivers because he can just slap a sacred site down on wetlands and call it a sacred site. Though it does have range 0, so I guess it is a little tougher to hit that now that I think about it. Either way, he has a special thing where he has a variable E on these powers, where E is the highest uncovered number on your energy track. For 1 sun, 1 water, he can defend E. As we've said, defend is usually among the weaker of the mechanics, but this is scaling defense, which is how you want to play with defense, because if it doesn't scale, you're generally out of luck in higher difficulties. So this is a nice way to do that. If you increase the value of one of your thing to 2 water and 1 earth in addition to the sun, you can target an adjacent land for defend E. I mean, I suppose when you hit the level 3 invaders and they're exploring 4 lands, it's more likely that the 2 lands you want to defend are adjacent to each other. But it's not a whole lot of boards where the 2 lands you want to defend are next to each other. I can think of a few off the top of my head. But there's not many
on the unbalanced boards.
Yeah, the thematic boards you get more. Yeah, the thematic boards you get more value out of it. But on the standard boards, which is typically, if you're going to play on high difficulty, you typically want to play on standard boards. The thematic board is not gentle if you play on high difficulty. Yeah, so it's fine. I'm not going to knock it, but it's not that impressive for the second level. Third level, which is actually easy to trigger because it's 1 sun, 1 beast. It actually replace, completely independent from the first 2 levels. In target land or an adjacent land, with your presence, you can gather up to E Dahan. Fine.
Pairs well with
the defend. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Perfectly good.
I guess
ability.
Actually, oh no, because that's beast. That's one.
Yeah. And then the third level is 1 sun, 1 water, 2 grass. So you kind of forego, like, it's possible to trigger the level 1, the level 3, and the level 2, or level 1, the level 3, and level 4 independently of the level 2. They all trigger more or less independently of each other, which is really interesting and kind of fun.
Yeah.
But anyways, level 4 is 1 sun, 1 water, 2 grass. Remove up to E health worth of invaders. Now that is the fucking money right there. The ability to, in the fast phase, remove X health, where X is your exposed energy track. It doesn't sound like much, but even if you only have a 3 uncovered, that's a city that you can just decide in the fast phase doesn't exist.
And I think it's
easy
to get that 3.
Oh, it's quite easy to get the 3. I believe it's 2 turns in.
The 3 once. Yeah.
Is it? I think
you have to do it twice. 2, 2, 3, isn't it?
I think you have to do it twice. I don't remember his board right off the top of my head. I don't have his board handy. But it's within 1 or 2 turns you can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure, it's removed, so you don't gain the fear. But honestly, removing the piece is still far more valuable than the fear. I love generating fear. I love progressing towards victory, fear victory as much as the next guy, but I am never going to knock removing white pieces off the board. I love that effect. So this is a very good effect nonetheless, even though I was thinking Sunshine. But yeah, this is still very good.
Yeah, and you are correct. It is 3D. It's 1, 2, 2, 3.
Okay. So it does take 2 turns, but that's still, I mean...
You're still going to get there pretty fast.
Yeah. It doesn't take much effort. Haven is definitely better than the base variant of him. I would actually probably put him... He loses a bit of his control, so he's not as control heavy as, say, the Sun Cat. Even the Otter has a bit more control.
True.
But I think the removal... I think if nothing else... We'll start him here. If nothing else, he does more invader removal than the Otter does, who's limited to, on his innate power, 4 damage, and he has like 1 or 2 powers that deal damage in his unique cards. Whereas this is just choose a land, invader's gone. Reliably, too. Again, 1/1/2 is a very easy trigger.
I would argue that's above enticing.
Yeah, like I said, I'm starting him here. I'm all for moving him up.
Just because, again, picking up pieces is so much better than moving them.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually
Wounded Water.
I don't know. I think
I'm open to discussion on it.
Yeah, I mean, Wounded Waters relies either on downgrade if you go Water or Beast to do damage if you go Beast. But
because I think the advantage Wounded Waters has is the flexibility.
Yeah. That's fair. We'll leave him here for now. Again, we reserve the right to change our opinion, but I think we can put him here for now. He might be better in Haven form than Wounded Waters. I'll have to think on that one.
I'll need some convincing on that one.
Yeah, Wounded Waters is pretty good. I do like Wounded Waters. Okay, so I kind of already foreshadowed this one because I thought this was the one we were doing. So I'll kick us off here. So this is the one where you forget Boon of Vigor. No one cares. It's a good card, but not good enough. Especially since you gained energy as a result, and you get your second innate power as the only low complexity spirit between the base game and even Horizons. To have 2 innate powers, and it's pretty fucking good. Hey, Wounded Waters. I'm in the wrong spirit now. Rivers was always a control-heavy spirit with aspects that enabled him to support. This is just a power that says, hey, what if we made your support ability just an innate part of the spirit? That way you can focus on your control, and by the nature of you just playing your cards out, you'll be supporting your allies because you just can support now as part of your innate. It's a quick, easy thing that just grants an ally energy equal to 1 less than whatever your uncovered energy track is. At level 2, you give yourself that much energy. So, hey, pick up a couple major powers early in the game. No one's going to stop you now. And then target spirit can remove Blight. Why not? Why not also add that? And again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a perfect utility support power for a spirit who naturally is going to be playing the sun and water elements just by default.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't have this. He didn't have this innate. And the what is it called? Boon of Vigor just gave an ally energy. So it literally just turned Boon of Vigor into an innate power form. So now you don't have to play that power just as you're playing and you're controlling your board or whatever it is you're doing. Just also support your allies. It's fantastic. There's no way this is bad. This is only a
the only downside is that you now have less powers starting in your hand.
Yeah, fair enough, but it's a small price to pay for permanent energy gain to your allies like this.
Oh yeah,
very good.
I think it forces you to lean into drawing a couple of cards earlier than you normally would, but I also don't play him enough to be like, this is when you should be drawing cards. This is what,
I think it's just strictly better than the base for sure. I think you can even play it technically with Haven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can. So technically, you can play Sunshine Haven. Haven of Sunshine?
I think you can technically play all 3 together. Yeah, because this one replaces Massive Flooding. That one replaces River's Domain.
You can just swap up all of them. Sunshine's better than the base Spirit. Unfortunately, since it doesn't change anything of the base Spirit, it just gives him the bonus ability. I think I gotta put it there.
Yeah.
He's better than he was in his base form because he's got access to new abilities, but the Spirit itself doesn't play any differently. It doesn't change its game plan substantially anyways. So I think that's all the only thing I can really do is say it's better.
Yep.
It's great.
I can agree with that. Travel. The worst of the 3.
Is it though?
Do you remember what this one is, right?
2 Illustrokes now. Let me double check here. Okay, so after growth, choose 2 among your lands. Move each of them to any land contiguously connected. Okay, yeah, so acts like a river. People tend to the river. In your lands with 4 or more. Oh, I mean...
and defend 1.
Yeah, the defend 1 is irrelevant. It's trying to replace the way in which you gain sacred sites, rather than just, if you're on a wetland, you have a sacred site. Now you have to have 4 Dahan to have a sacred site. And the ability to move them between lands means that you do have mobile sacred sites, which I'll give you credit there. Because provided you are moving 2 Dahan into a land that does have 2 Dahan, you can move a sacred site.
True, but you only have 6 Dahan on the board.
Yeah,
I need agree. 4 for it to be a sacred site.
I agree. There's a lot of limitations, but I think once you've kind of got a setup, this is a control Spirit, mind you. So you will have the invaders more or less in the spots you want the invaders, as well as the Dahan more or less in the locations we want the Dahan. So theoretically,
a lot of push.
Yeah, so theoretically, you can kind of set this up where you have two Dahan in one area where you would normally like a sacred site, 2 Dahan in another area where you might want a sacred site, and then you shift the other ones between to move your sacred site as you need for targeting purposes. I agree. It's not strictly speaking better than.
I think I would rather see it be just no defend and 2 or 3 Dahan to have it be a sacred site. I think that would be better.
That would be 100% better, but it might be too much better. Well, then again, these are the low complexity shooters, aren't terribly great to begin with usually.
Well, and you're losing the being on wetlands makes you sacred sites.
Yeah.
And it also, I would dare say it actively makes it worse simply for the fact that as Dahan die, because I don't believe it has any way to.
I think it's got
produce
one
Dahan.
defend card. It can produce. It has one that is it's gather up to 1 Dahan. If the land now contains 2 or more Dahan, add a Dahan.
I did forget about that. But maybe it's. I still think it's the worst of the 3, but I think maybe it's not as bad as it is.
I find it hard. I think the ability to have some sort of mobility to your sacred sites, I think just makes it better. Even if it does take a turn or 2 to kind of build up the Dahan base that you need, I would argue that the mobility provided, because otherwise, I mean, unless you get a board where your wetlands are both within range 1 of every other land that you want to target, or potentially your allies' land that you want to target, this just gives him the ability to kind of move his sacred sites to a location for targeting purposes to get range where he wouldn't otherwise have it.
True, but it also makes his sacred sites a bit more, I want to say, exposed or subject to issues. For instance, there are a couple events that are like Ravage, essentially right then, and you wouldn't know that's going to happen. You could lose all the Dahan that you would need for that to become a sacred site. Suddenly, you no longer have a place to target with from your power. I see a lot more.
You bring up a very fair point. I don't know if it drops him though. I don't want to drop him to D tier. I don't think what detriments it plagues or has are such a plague that he becomes worse. But yeah. I do see your point. Maybe it is worse.
I think there's just a higher risk to it.
That's fair. So that's interesting though. See, like, okay, you got one that's a little bit better, one that's a tiny bit worse. Maybe just you probably should be playing this one.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next?
Your favorite?
Locust. Oh god. They did him so dirty.
There it is.
They did him so dirty. Well, I shouldn't say that. This isn't bad. All right, I'm going to be saying a lot of negative. Let me preface. I'm going to be saying a lot of negative things about this aspect. it is not a bad aspect. To kind of what do you call it? TLDR. That's what they call it. The sort of vocal version of TLDR. So too long, didn't listen. I don't know.
That would be TLDR.
Yeah, TLDR. I know. I'm trying to think of what would be.
I don't know what.
I don't think they have one. Too long. Yeah, the shorthand of this is that this is not a bad aspect. It's just, in my at least opinion, after playing way too many games of the snake, this is a fair trade that the snake doesn't want to make, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
This is you and your friends on the school playground trading Pokemon cards, and it's a fair trade, but you don't want to make it, type of thing. Like if that makes any sense.
There's a personal attachment involved.
Yeah, if that makes any sense. So basically, for those, just to remind everybody here, what is going on is, so first you replace Elemental Aegis with Pull Beneath the Hungry Earth, which is a minor power card. You also put your Incarna on the board along with your the presence from your fire space on your track, which means you now have 3 presents on the board, one of which is the Incarna. And hey, putting more presence on the board as the snake is always great, because the closer he gets to that earth tile, the closer he gets to waking up. And he has a permanent bonus effect where he can add or move his Incarna to a land with his presence. Fantastic. That's a great... It's not the most... Actually, it's probably... Well, it's not the most mobility, but it's pretty good mobility. Once per turn, just,
It's consistent mobility.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's not going to be like Delirium's, where he's like, move it 4 times in one turn.
So he's got some mobility to it. It also adds the value of spirits who you've absorbed with essence absorption, or absorb essence, or whatever it's called. They can use your Incarna for targeting their powers, which is great, because as we've talked about before, Serpent tends to have a little bit of a weak early game, and this is a way, and he kind of needs a little bit of help, and this is a way for spirits to give him that assistance without having to physically be on his board or near his board enough where they can actually help, because now they can just target from his presence. The Incarnate doesn't count towards your Deep Slumber. Fantastic, because that would... And it really couldn't, because it would screw up the whole Slumber track if it did. So that was more out of necessity than because they were nice. After uncovering the Earth space, you empower it. I don't think the Empower does anything that I can see. I have to double check here. I don't see any reason why it would need to be empowered or not. I don't think it changes its effects at all. And I'm double checking here. I'm not seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So empowering Incarna means literally nothing to him unless some other spirit somehow cares whether his Incarna is empowered or not, which to the best of my knowledge don't, thankfully. It also, unfortunately, this is where we start to get into the kind of the rough spot here. So it replaces Wake's Empower with Strength of the Waking Island. It's 2 water, 1 earth, completely acceptable to hit from turn 2 onward, provided you go for 2 card plays as soon as possible anyways. And then after a spirit uses a land targeting power card, they may repeat that card at the location of your your Incarna, by paying its cost again. You, as the snake, may help pay some or even all of the costs. The repeats of these ignore range and targeting requirements, since they specifically target the land that the Incarna's in. This is, again, great, because the snake's big problem is, sustaining his board, usually. Sometimes. Most of the time. Sustaining early game is kind of what he's weak at. This is, again, giving the other spirits opportunities to assist him without having to physically jump over to his board and drop all their shit. The level 2 variant of this, what is it? Strength of the Waking Land. 2 moon, 2 mountain, 1 earth, or 1 grass. I already said that. 2 moon, 2 mountain, 1 grass. Again, entirely possible with 2 card plays, which is great because the snake's going to be sitting on 2 card plays for a good, hefty chunk of the game. So being able to use both these abilities is fantastic. It adds vitality at his Incarna. Cool. The snake does not like blighted lands since he can't put presence into blighted lands, at least not from his growth option. He can move into that land from his reclaim option. He could have done that had this not removed Wakes and Power through Wakes and Power, or any other present dropping, proliferation effects. He could have done it. So it's not the end of the world, like to have his lion blighted. It's just he'd prefer it not to be. So again, vitality's cool, I guess. If a spirit has 2 or more absorbed presence, you may instead add 1 vitality in one of their lands that does not have blight, which
I don't know why you wouldn't get both.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that you have to not do both. I feel like that might be one of 2 things. Either I undervalue vitality, or greater than games overvalued vitality.
Better than strife.
Yeah. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if it's we undervalue it or if it's greater than games overvalues vitality, but that seems like that's one of those 2 things is happening here. Where it was decided that it can't be an and effect, it is instead an or effect.
I would say probably overvaluing.
From greater than's perspective?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Which, I can kind of see. Like, we'll get into someone who does vitality really well later.
Yeah. It could be. I don't know. It just seems weird that generally speaking, when it comes to the snake, in terms of the Wakes and Power and now the Waking Island, whenever he's gotten an effect for himself, it applies that same effect to everyone he's eaten. And this is now it's an and or not an and or. It's strictly an or.
Yeah.
Which is, again, feels kind of weird because that's never been his gimmick.
Yeah. It's always kind of been I gain a little something, you gain a little something.
Yeah.
As long as you
that was the trade-off is the other spirit loses a presence but they gain a permanent benefit for doing so.
Yeah.
Whereas this is not as permanent. Overall,
not at all.
Overall, like I said, this is one of those things where if you were to break it down, I used Pokemon cards before for the second round. I use Magic cards now. Like, this is one where you're trading Magic cards with somebody, and according to your preferred source of card prices, it's a fair trade. You still, to me, you just don't want to make that trade.
Yeah.
I think personally that Waking in Power is more powerful than Island Waking, which you can't. By the way, Locust is a 2-parter. You can't have just one or the other. You have to have both. But I do love the ability for spirits again to assist the snake when he needs their assistance the most. It's a fantastic ability. Again, I think Wakes and Power is just more valuable for the way the snake generally wants to play, which is, I wouldn't say rush. You don't want to rush anything with the snake, or you're gonna start hitting your presence cap. But the Wakes and Power is just so valuable to eat your allies and just supply them with 1 energy per turn for 4 or 5 turns type of thing.
Yeah.
And God forbid, once you wake up and all these spirits are like, hey, you know how I was giving you energy? Well, what if in addition to that energy, you also got to proliferate? It's rare that you find a game, God forbid 4 spirits, which is what we're comparing these to. It's rare that you'll find a 4-spirit game where at least not one, if 2 other spirits are begging to be eaten twice so that they can proliferate faster when the snake hits that Wakes and Power level 2. It's very rare that you'll see something like that. So yeah, like I said, I don't hate Locust. I just think you're giving up more than I would like to give up. I think the snake's early game to control his own board is acceptable enough without this, is basically what I want to say. That said, I don't think it super nerfs the snake either, or buffs him. I think
it's kind of you gain a little bit and you lose a little bit.
Again, I think it's
a tit for tat.
Yeah, like I've said, it's a fair trade. So I'm gonna put him lower than the base game snake, and this is just because I think base game snake doesn't need this aspect, but isn't hurt by it, which is why I'm going to put it lower. So that's kind of what I want to say on that particular subject. Oh,
it's definitely not
God. So many aspects.
True, but once we
they tried so hard to make this like so many ways. Like we got so many ways to make this spirit great.
And not to mention the fact that each one of them replaces the same ability.
Yeah.
You can't mix and match.
They're like so many. They're like the spirit is so iffy and meh, and no one can figure. Like no one knows what to do. That one just man.
Amorphous, Darkfire.
Oh boy.
Here, I'll give you that one to start.
Amorphous. Range fast phase. You may move one.
How about I talk about that one and you talk about this one?
We'll try and talk a little bit about each. We haven't really done very good at the back and forth part of this. We'll see if we can't turn that around the last half here.
I'm not super worried about it. So I think we've gotten a good handle on it so far. So Amorphous. During your fast phase, you can move up to one of your presence to an adjacent land, or to a land with Dahan anywhere on the island. And also in the slow phase, you can do that same effect to an adjacent land or to a land with Dahan anywhere on the island. It's nice for getting wherever you need to go for targeting purposes. There's another spirit who has a similar effect to this on that aspect. Ability. I do quite like it. The mobility is insane. It's, I think, better than Shadows of the Dawn, but it doesn't really offer a whole lot to be like leaps and bounds ahead of it. Overall, just fairly straightforward. Because you lose the ability to just target a land with Dahan
with any power.
Yeah. But at the exchange of your presence just jumps to Dahan.
Yeah. Which is arguably a lot better in the sense that...
You think a lot better?
Well, because here's the thing, is that you can target a land with Dahan anywhere on the board regardless of power range. Well, now, once per turn, or once per fast, once per slow, you can jump to that land, which means if you wanted to target it, you still can, because a range 0 is going to target there. But now your range 2 can target from there.
True.
Which you would not have been able to do prior. I think it's substantially better.
True, not to mention that you could jump it there and then jump it back in the slow if need be. Yeah. Or if you need a full ritual site and it's a slow power, you can fully do that.
You can also move in the slow phase, do what you need to. In the fast phase, get out of a land that's going to ravage that you can't protect.
Yep.
I think this is much more valuable than his base, the Shadows of the Dahan.
Yeah, I can see
because
that.
It gives you, it's functionally giving you the target a land with Dahan anywhere on the board. Only in this case, it's also equal to the reach of whatever the fucking powers you're using. 0, 1, 2, 3. And,
Do you think that gets him out of D tier, or do you think he's still?
I would argue puts him back to where we initially had him, up in C tier here. I don't know if he's better than River. It's tough. He's in better elements, I would say, than River, but River's got a lot of value. I think I gotta put him here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I'm okay with.
I think
that's a fitting spot.
He is better.
I'll let you talk about your favorite this time.
Oh, this is the
at least out of his.
This is by far the one I think is his best. So yeah, replaces special rules Shadow of the Dawn. Yeah, that's just innate. Gets him a 5th power card, which is huge because he just gains unquenchable flames regardless. Doesn't have to give up anything, which is cool. So you lose the ability to target any land with Dahan, regardless of range, but you may treat Moon available to you as if it were fire, and vice versa. Choose during each action whether it counts as Moon, whether it counts as fire. You may discard or forget power cards that grant Moon or Fire to pay for choice events and vice versa. So basically you have Moon or Fire to be determined at the instant you need it. It's instant speed, Massive Gathering again. Instant speed, elemental change. Sorry, there's one other part here. We get so excited for the first part. At first the first time each action would destroy your presence, you may push one of those presents instead of destroying it. So a little bit of defense there added in to keep him alive as well. In addition, you will always have from turn 1 on 1 fire or moon of your choice. It just gives you a flat out one. This means that you can actually trigger the level 1 of your innate off of 1 card play, because you'll have the other moon / fire or whatever you need from this bonus that you get here.
Yeah.
This is by far his best one. Now, this is actually a great time to clarify.
I was also thinking the same thing.
Yeah, this is a great time to clarify that since our last video, we've done a lot more math and broken down a lot more of this game, because we're idiots that way. Turns out that every possible dual combination, strictly dual, don't go beyond duels.
And also specifically in minor powers.
Yeah, it's in minor. But all of the minor powers, all 100 of the minor powers, there is 39 cards of each dual type. So no matter what, you always have the same, on the first draw, you will always have the same chance to draw your twin elements. I was complaining before because it felt like fire and moon just never showed up.
We broke down the math.
Yeah,
at least on that first draw, it is always the same.
Yeah, it is always going to be the same on the first draw. So I've just either been very unlucky or I'm a complete idiot. Let's not think too hard on that one. But either way, this is such a fantastic way. Triggering thresholds and triggering innates is always, in my opinion, one of the most valuable things you can do on your turn, because you might be limited to, say, 2 card plays. But if you can play 2 cards and trigger 2 innates, you get to use 4 powers. Which is why I don't like that a lot of these base game and these low complexity spirits only have 1 power, is because it means when they do get the bonuses from triggering their elements, they're not playing 4 powers, they're playing 3, which is a very big difference in this game.
Yeah.
But this is such a nice effect, the ability to just, you can go to 2 card plays and suddenly you have access to your level 2 innate on turn 1. And for him, that's very powerful. It's, again, gather up to, I think it's a maximum of 3. It might only be 2 explorers, and then destroy all the explorers in the land. Or it's destroy up to 2 explorers in the land they gathered into. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just... And as I've said before, this guy's got a really nice energy track and a pretty reasonable card play track, and can kind of sustain playing 3 cards per turn, which you can still do with this aspect, but you don't necessarily have to, because you can now go to 2 card plays and then burn down the energy track while still triggering the level 2 of your innate. Yeah, it's not nearly as powerful, because wouldn't you rather be playing 3 cards? Yes and no. Again, he can sustain 3 card plays, but he can sustain 2 card plays much more efficiently, as most spirits can. So it's good, it's bad, it's not bad, there's nothing really bad. You lose the Dahan targeting power, which, that hurts, but if I'm being completely honest with you, targeting a land anywhere on the board that has Dahan is such a crapshoot. Because that whatever power you want to target that land has to do something in that land with the Dahan, or the Dahan has to be there's so much that has to align. I want to use this power on this land, but there's no Dahan. Well, fat lot of good that does. Oh, I want to use this power on this land with Dahan, but unfortunately there's nothing that benefits me for doing so, because the invaders aren't in that land, or whatever the excuse may be. I think the big reason is because they gave him the initial unique powers, because it meant you could target his innate, which gathers things, so you could gather things into a land with Dahan. But it's generally, I just don't know how valuable it is, other than the rare instance where you do get Dahan in a land that needs to be targeted by something that you have. This is just so much better. This is, in my opinion, is it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 aspects of this guy. This is, in my opinion, the best one he's got. There are a few others that
flexible and it's consistent.
Yeah, there are a few others that can compete with it and can get pretty close, but this is by far the best one. This is one that gives him just so much consistency, so much value. I would dare say he's up near the Otter. I don't know if he's better than the Otter. The Otter is really good.
Yeah, the Otter is kind of out of left field. Like, why are you able to do this?
Yeah. It's tough for me to put him above the Snake because, again, the Snake is my favorite. I'm trying to stay unbiased here. This guy does have just a much better early game, and this particular innate Darkfire, I think, does give him more control early in the game to more efficiently gain control of his board and win. So I think I do have to put him above the Snake. It just seems weird.
Yeah,
I don't like doing it, but I think I got it. I don't think he's better than the Otter. The Otter is.
Foreboding.
Yeah.
I
just realized I gotta zoom out here.
Bit of a love-hate relationship with it.
I forgot the shortcut to zoom out. Is it control something? Whatever. We'll just zoom out naturally.
Yeah. There we go.
That way I can see the thing.
Back to functional. Yeah, foreboding, fast power, range 2. This, like all of his others, replaces Shadows of the Dahan. 2 wind, your powers can ignore range when targeting a singular land. Oh
wait, this is another spirit that gets 2 innates. That's right.
Yeah.
River is not unique as I thought.
Yeah, thankfully they did start to add these a bit more. This was in, I don't know what that symbol is. That's not Incarnate.
That's Incarnate.
Okay.
Or no, that's not. That is that's Jagged Earth. This is Incarnate.
Okay, I thought Jagged Earth was I thought this was Jagged Earth, the volcano looking thing.
Yeah, that's also Jagged Earth. Jagged Earth has like 3 set symbols.
Gotcha. So yeah, your other powers, specifically yours, may ignore range when targeting the target land for 2 wind. For 1 moon, after an action generates fear in target land, including from destroying towns and cities, you can push up to 1 explorer per fear, or up to 1 town per 2 fear. You can mix and match those as needed. Kind of nice. He already has a decent amount of fear that he can generate, and just being able to destroy stuff to generate more is nice. He can kind of clear out and stall areas for a little bit. 2 fire for 1 fear gets you the 1 fear to start pushing stuff. The one that bothers me the most is the last one, 2 moon and 4 wind to generate 2 fear. It's hefty to push essentially a town. And especially because I find myself, I don't really go down his card plays all that much. I'll generally get 2 or 3 card plays, and then it's just energy from there. So I struggled to hit that last one. The other 3 are all pretty easy to do. Being able to only target the 1 land at no range kind of feels bad compared to just target lands with Dahan at any range or jumping to them. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because I would put this slightly below, I think.
The base one?
Probably like right next to, yeah.
I don't know. I would probably argue for it being better. Again, you do lose the target land with Dahan, regardless of range. But this one also gives you ignore range, granted within its own limited range of 2. But it does mean that you can take range 1 and range 0 powers and target a land they would otherwise not be able to target. And as we discussed a little bit previously, probably too much actually previously, the odds of you hitting a land with your previous, your default special rule is not going to land you as frequent as this. This is much more likely that you're going to target a land within 2 and be able to hit it with a power that's at range 1 or range 0 than you are going to get the Dahan to line up in a land with things that need to be taken care of that you are otherwise going to do. I think that, again, talking consistency, this is going to be more consistent. You might find the occasional instance, even in a game where you're playing this, where you're going to go, I really wish I had the base game thing. But the number of times you're going to hit that in any one game, including the game where you took this, is going to be a lot less than when you went, oh, thank God I can hit them with my range 1 power or my range 0 power
that I otherwise that's a good point
to do.
Yeah, and having the push effect is nice. It's doable with the fear requirement as well. You're essentially just, for every fear you gain as a point of health, you can move. Is essentially how that maths out. Just not being able to move cities, though. I don't think it would be too high up above, though. Like, I really feel like it might just be adjacent 1 up.
That
based off
that.
Because you're not doing more damage, you're just shuffling everything around.
I don't know if I could put him above even Tree Grandma, but that's fair. It is better, but I don't think that this tier list is, because you can't, like, unless we were to put him down like much lower. I don't think that this displays just how much better Forebodings is. I mean, it's not the whole tier better, so it's not that big a deal, but
yeah. And also, it's not like we play Shadows a whole lot.
Yeah.
So
it is better, but I don't think this is representative of how much better, simply because there's just nothing we can put in between. But theoretically, there's a bigger gap here than is displayed, is what I would say.
Okay. There's still time.
Yeah, there's still more to come.
I'll let you do. Or no, I'll do this.
Yeah,
I'll let you.
Well,
we'll let you enjoy
discuss
that.
Together.
Yeah.
We'll try and discuss together what we can.
So madness.
Mad.
Whenever you add a presence during growth, you can also add a strife in that land. Not
Demonetized.
bad. Strife is the worst token of them all, but it's still a free strife.
Yep.
And when your presence is destroyed, if invaders are present, 1 fear per presence destroyed there. Now, I know I at first was kind of against this one and thought this was just overall pretty bad. But you did have some fairly solid points on it. Because I was looking at it as you're essentially gaining a little bit for having a downside, but it's more so being rewarded for struggling at some point, maybe, which kind of helps balance that out. You could probably explain what your reasoning was better than I can.
That's fair. That's fair. Fine. So yeah, basically the way I have been reading and playing this is when you add presence during growth, you add strife. It specifies growth. That is a little unfortunate because it means you can't use proliferation cards to also generate strife. But it means that you can, say, use your innate on 1 land in the slow phase, save that land from building, and then in the next turn, you can drop your presence into one of the lands that is going to ravage and theoretically stop it from blighting the land. Though, once again, as we've always said, it leaves behind the plastic, but it's still not the end of the world. It still gives you the ability to stop 2 blight functionally. 1 in the slow phase where you stop them from building, and 1 in the fast phase where you stop them from successfully blighting the island. So there's a lot of value in that regard. And you can also drop defend, obviously, on other lands to deal with it. So it's pretty good. The Glimpse of the Shadowed Void, when your presence is destroyed, if the invaders are present, 1 fear per destroyed there. That, I think, is just supposed to be more icing on the cake than anything. It's not like you're going to go out of your way to get your presence destroyed. Outside of the snake, I don't think there's a lot of spirits who do. And the snake only does it so that he can make sure he doesn't cap himself. Destroying your presence is rarely a good thing, except, well, I guess that's actually a lie. Lizard also purposely destroys his presence, but that's for a whole different reason.
Yeah.
But
that's going to be a consistent benefit versus just a...
Yeah, I see Glimpse as the Shadowed Void simply a way of going, hey, this spirit is not, even with this ability, is definitely not going to go into the late game with everything to gain. He's kind of going into it with everything to lose. And this is a way to help mitigate some of that loss that he's going to suffer. So It's not meant to be something you're not meant
He's
to.
Getting hazard pay.
Yeah, you're not meant to strive for a glimpse of the shrouded void. It's just meant to be a, hey, shit happens. I think it's even added as a result of there's so many fucking event cards that'll add 1 damage to a land, and suddenly that strife you put down meaningless.
That's fair.
So I like I said, I see the glimpse as more of a here's your lollipop, like thanks for playing,
Yeah.
Good try, rather than something you should be striving to actually achieve. That said, if you have destruction or replace destroyed presence, then by all means abuse that power and keep putting your presence back.
Gross.
You're not getting
sacrifice.
if people,
it's not really his elements. I don't think,
it doesn't put destroyed presence out. That's proliferation.
Well, no, but you have to just sacrifice one of your own, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, growth and sacrifice is illegal outside of my table because I didn't take that card out of Suck It Greater Than Games. It's a great fucking card. I did not want to replace the best minor power in the game with something that doesn't even come close to competing with it. Overall, Madness is, in my opinion, better than his base.
Is this what goes between him and foreboding?
That might be the case. Yeah, it's probably fair.
What separates shadows foreboding from shadows is shadows.
The only thing that separates shadows is more shadows. All right, what do we got here for the last one? We got reach.
Just once per turn, you can ignore range.
Yep. I do like how it's labeled as lower complexity because it technically is.
Yeah.
But I think it's more valuable because as I've said and we've discussed a little bit, the number of times in which Dahan are going to line up in a land you want to target per turn, let alone per game, is not that frequent. And the ability to just once per turn instead be like, fuck it, any land at all, is, in my opinion, far more valuable. Because again, you're not looking for everything to line up for the stars don't have to align for reach. Yes. It's just I want to hit this land.
I think it still needs to be below Amorphous though, because Amorphous at least is either target infinite range to Dahan and jump there, or it's just move it. Yeah. So
that's fair. I'm not gonna make an argument that reach is better than Amorphous. I will agree Amorphous is substantially better. But I think reach is better than the base spirit. Probably better than Madness.
I'm okay with that, yeah.
Better than Foreboding. Probably better than Foreboding. I think it's better than Rising Sun, though. Or Rising Heat.
Oh, no. No.
I'm trying to... I can think of scenarios, individual circumstances where it would be. Let's just say spill bitterness.
Well, sure. If we're looking at that once,
like I said, I can see a handful of scenarios that this would jump up. But again, we're not looking at individual.
I was gonna say that's no different than me being like, but if Ocean was in the game,
100%. Unfortunately, a few niche scenarios does not save him.
Yeah.
Just like we do not allow it to save any other spirit. And I can't think of a reason why in its normal conditions it would be better than Rising Sun, which is like I want to kind of put him there, but I can't convince myself, let alone think of any even pathetic half argument that could maybe convince anyone else that it's better than Rising Heat. But I want to. It's one of those things where I feel like it should be. But I don't
-1 health to each invader is just...
like I said, I can't bring myself to be like, why would it though? Like I can't figure it out. I want it to be, but there's no reason it should be.
All right, it's gonna be steering wheel back to you, and then I'll take it for shifting memory after these.
My beloved Panther. Let's start with Unconstrained. I know it's the second one on the list, but it's the one I would rather talk about first because I love Encircle, and we'll get to that one. But Unconstrained is so weird to me. So, first, You replace Call Forth Predators, his special rule that allows him to remove his presence from the game to add a beast. You also no longer add a beast during setup. Kind of sucks, honestly. It kind of hurts a lot, honestly. but on the plus side, Ranging Hunt no longer has the restriction of cannot target blighted lands. He can now target any land in the game with it. Fantastic. Honestly, brilliant. I love it. It feels so good. Except for you replace your special rule with a new special rule, Predators Arise, which is at the spirit phase, you choose either prepare a beast, storing it next to your spirit panel, or add any number of your prepared beasts to one of your lands. This is one of those things that is simultaneously better and simultaneously worse than the original. Because of your ability to just stockpile beasts and your ability to just drop into a land, that's where I want them, throw them all there, or throw even just 2 of them there, little by little. It means that you will have beasts where you need them. It gives Ranging Hunt the ability to... it gives Ranging Hunt the ability to target fortified lands, basically.
Yeah.
The invaders can build up a little bit. You can drop a presence in there, bring in 3 beasts, call in another one from Raging Hunt. God knows there might already be a beast in that land. You're looking you can definitely hit fortified lands with Raging Hunt this way. My problem with it, as good as that is, and I'm not going to knock that by any means. And again, the ability to be able to target blighted lands is great too. The problem is that the Spirit Island is a game of, as we've talked about before, you need to hit hard. You need to hit fast. You need to be playing aggressively. And not being able to just every single turn at the drop of a hat throw a beast onto a land when you need it, because with this ability, it's very possible you'll hit 1 or 2 turns where you're like, I need to put 1 beast down. I don't have any beasts prepared. Now what do I do? Hopefully I have a power card that does in the fast phase type of thing.
Unexpected Tigers. It's not his card.
But. Yeah, it's the thing is that what makes Panther good is his ability to just eviscerate the invaders in the early game. And this, while a valuable card for dealing with unique circumstances, fortified lands, blighted lands, and the like, in my opinion, gives up a little bit, just a little bit, too much, because you can't just spawn a beast every time you need a beast to be somewhere. That's to show you. I
feel like it kind of goes back into the trend that we kind of see with a couple of these aspects of losing out on your early game to have a more secure mid-late game.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't really fit with what we are looking for, or the best, or probably, I don't want to say the best way to play the game, but
it's not. Yeah, it's not fair. But
I can't think of a good synonym for it, or something along those lines. But yeah, because you're also not having to worry about losing all of your presence in order to get the beasts, but.
Yeah, but the thing is he was never really worried about it. His presence has always been so mobile. His ability to build a sacred site when he needs to and then disassemble it in order to get reach as he needs to. That's why he's never needed more than maybe 3 or 4 presence on the board. It's what made his special rule so powerful is the fact that he was built around not needing his presence on the board. And so they gave you a way to put what he did need on the board in place of it. And this is... Now you still have the ability to put what you need on the board without the drawback of losing presence, but losing presence was a very minor issue. There were a few there. I will not lie. I'm definitely not the only person, I don't think, who's done this one where you only have, say, 3 presence on the board. You flip that blight card and it says destroy 3 presence, and you lose the game immediately.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's happened to several other people. But generally speaking, he doesn't need his presence, so allowing him to keep his presence at the cost of not having as reliable beast generation, I think is just a bit of a hindrance. But again, he can target blighted lands. He can take out fortified sections. So he's getting very good value from what he's losing. That said, I would still say it's only here, like right next to him, but still technically not better than him. Still value, still a great spirit, still does everything he needs to do, but it's probably in your best interest to keep the
he still has a stronger early game with it.
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
It is weaker, but it's not.
It's not like weak.
Yeah, it's not. Again, he loses one beast right out of the gate, which is arguably the worst part that he has to trade. Is he loses his one free beast just from starting the game. That is probably the highest price he pays in this whole thing. But I still think it's worse just a little bit than his base self, simply because A, you get that free beast, and you always have the ability to proactively add beasts. Like, oh, a situation has arisen due to whatever it is. I need one more beast. I guarantee I have it. And you don't, the situation might be few and far between where you aren't able to add beasts when you need to, but they do happen, and you can't have those happen in the base set, which is why I'm ranking it lower. Okay. You'll never run into that situation where you're like, I need a beast, but I don't have any prepped. Because you can't. So,
yeah.
Sorry, there's a lot to go on that one. This is a spirit I've played a lot of. I really like this spirit. So I have a better than newbie understanding of what I want this spirit to do and what I think it should be doing in relative to what, again, my own opinions on the spirit. And unconstrained, it gives him a lot of value, but it takes away more than I personally am willing to give up. I don't know how many times you've even played Unconstrained, let alone the Panther.
I was gonna say, I think I played the Panther once. Like, I have him, I just don't play him.
Don't worry, I was in.
That's why I was like, "You're gonna handle this, and I'm gonna take my shifting memory."
Yeah,
because you'll know what you're talking about a lot more than I will.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I said this last time. Here's another little tangent for all you listening. But I was in the same kind of boat as you. Is when I first got this game, when I was learning it, when I first got Branching Claw, I didn't like the Panther.
It's not that I don't like him. It's just.
Well, I'm not saying you don't like him. I'm just saying, but I didn't like him, so I didn't really play him. It wasn't until I got much more into it and I started to just experiment with other spirits, and when I started playing, I'm like, holy shit, this guy's a fucking boss. This guy's a monster.
Oh yeah,
I can't believe how much work he does. I'm like, how did it take me so long to start playing this guy? What a absolute ironically or unironically beast this guy is.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so yeah, in Circle. This is another interesting one. Everything about this guy's aspects are interesting, in my opinion. So first thing you lose is Ally of the Beast. This is another absolutely ludicrously painful thing to give up. Because Ally of the Beast means you no longer get to move your presence. So you lose all of your mobility by taking this card. It replaces Ranging Hunt, which would otherwise be your mobility. So not only do you lose the ability to be mobile, should an event card decide to move some beasts around, you like, I wouldn't mind going over in that direction too. You also lose the ability to just innately move yourself around. So that alone is you read that, and to me, I'm going, there better be something fucking phenomenal about this, because you're basically destroying what made this spirit. Not what made it good, just what made it, the way this spirit played. You do gain the ability, Pack Hunting. All your powers gain +1 range for targeting lands, provided the land you're targeting has a beast in it. And hey, as we've said, range is huge. And again, you're losing your mobility. You kind of need this now. Let's see. But then you get the ability to replace his ranging hunt with encircle the unsuspecting prey. For 1 grass, 2 beasts, which is technically triggerable on turn 1, which ranging hunt technically is if you go down the energy track on turn 1. But you may gather 1 beast into target or adjacent land. If you do, 1 damage in that land. Great. That's what ranging hunt more or less would do on every conceivable surface. The difference is this is slow, which means you're now not targeting the land they explored into on turn 1, but the land they explored into on turn 2. And you're letting them build the land on turn 1 because you have no choice now. I mean, yeah, you have your anti-build card, but they're getting to build twice. And you don't have the ability to move your presence around, so you can't move your presence into the land where they're going to build, or a beast anyways, and then target that land with the anti-build, while your other presence goes to the land where they're building also, and then using the push power he's got to push them off that land. You still could technically do that, but then you're giving up your encircle, because neither of those cards have grass, and you can't get grass on turn 1, even if you do go down the energy track, because the first element you get is beast. So it doesn't, strictly speaking, slow down his turn 1, but it will hurt his turn 1 because he has to completely redesign. It's basically a complete redesign of how he plays his turn 1, which fair. He does retain the second ability of this is 1 moon and 3 beasts, so very easily triggerable on turn 3 when you have 3 card plays potentially. Technically possible on turn 1 if you go down the energy track, because you can take the beast there and play 2 cards with beast. Where if you have at least 2 beasts are within range 1 of target land, you do 1 damage. So you can do 2 damage in 1 single land. In that regard, destroying the town they built, I will give you credit. If you can do 1 moon, 1 grass, and 3 beasts, which again is technically possible. So you could do that. Again, like I said, it changes his turn 1, doesn't make it bad.
Yeah.
The real bread and butter of Encircle is the level 3, where you need 1 moon, 2 grass, and 4 beasts, where for each adjacent land that has a beast, deal 1 damage to the target land. This is his new way of dealing with fortified zones. I was saying before, the other one, the Unconstrained, kind of gave you a workaround to deal with fortified lands. This one just another way to deal with fortified lands, while not losing, strictly speaking, the ability to early in the game remain aggressive and target down lands. You just have to start targeting lands they explored into on the turn they explored into them, rather than the turn after where you'd have in the fast phase to do it. Again, the only thing that really changes is the way in which he wants to approach his turn 1. And it will alter, to a lesser extent, his following turns a little bit because of how he wants to play cards to match the element requirements for this. But by no means does it make him, strictly speaking, bad. That said, I don't know if I'd call it, strictly speaking, better, because while it gives him a way to deal with fortified lands, he doesn't want the invaders to be fortified to begin with.
Yeah.
So while it's giving you an answer to a problem, it's a problem that he really shouldn't have more than 1 land, maybe which is to say the land that starts with a city by default, that's ever going to really fortify beyond the point where Ranging Hunt can deal with it. So
do you think better than other aspect, but worse than base?
I would say all 3 of these, even though we're putting them on a list, they're basically all overlapping each other. Okay. They all sit basically on top of each other. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying about before, is like that last aspect, this one, everything about the beast is just so interesting because nothing makes him worse. Nothing makes him strictly better. They all just give him access to things that he would otherwise be lacking. And it really comes down a bit more to play style and individual preference than one being strictly better. I would only put them in this order on the tier list. A, because you can't have them stacked on top of each other. And B, this is at this point just my preferred play style of him. This is what I like more. I like all 3 of these. I like the base. I like encircle. I like unconstrained. Um, there's nothing wrong with any of them. And it might be even one of those things where it comes down more to the other spirits in the game or even the invaders. Encircle, for example, I would play Encircle every single time versus England because England can fortify beyond his ability to otherwise control them. And Encircle gives him the answer, the power to deal with England. But against Russia, I'm going basic all the time. I need those beasts to be on the board. I need them to be moving and taking out explorers. I don't have time to build up with the unconstrained. I don't have time to work. He needs to be gunning for all these explorers when Russia hits the board.
Yeah.
Something like France, you could probably get away a little bit better with the unconstrained because he doesn't necessarily need to have a beast every single turn, but there's going to be turns where he's going to need a lot of beasts in one area at one time. So it's literally more of a, again, personal preference combined with maybe the invaders. This is easily, in my opinion, these two aspects were some of the best designed in that regard because it is more invader dependent than it is almost anything else, as opposed to trying to fix a problem or in some cases nerf a particular spirit to bring them back into line. This was just, hey, this is a really good spirit. We're going to give him aspects that counteract certain things that he doesn't necessarily do well. And if you play invaders or if your play style revolves around that weakness, now you have a compensation for it.
Yeah.
I love these ones.
It kind of gives you alternate pathways to play.
Yeah, they were fantastically. A lot of the aspects are great and were fantastic designs. Let me make that perfectly clear. A lot of the aspects were really well designed. These two, though, the whole thing around the head, they phenomenal. They easily the best ones. Just fantastic way they made him work. I love everything about them. Sorry, I went off for a long time, but again, there was so much to talk about. Just again, the way in which they interact with the spirit and shit. Just,
oh, yeah.
Sorry, I went off. I'll let you talk now for way too long.
I'm not worried about it. I doubt they're worried about it. That's what we're here for, is to talk about Spirit Island. So jumping into some of the aspects for shifting memory, there is Intensify. It's definitely very unique in what it does. You no longer can spend your element markers to meet thresholds and things like that. You now instead can spend them to improve the abilities on your cards. I do feel like this does push him a little bit more towards a minor spam leaning spirit, where he can get more of those options to be spending those element markers on. He also gets a bonus of a moon element and one of anything. So he's got some flexibility with that as well to kind of cover the fact that he can't use his element markers for thresholds anymore. I personally don't like it. I feel like it takes away from what his specialty is and tries to kind of make him something that he shouldn't be. But outside of that, I can see where a lot of other people might enjoy it. I don't think it's particularly bad, other than it is restrictive based off of the fact that your cards have to already have the effect that he's increasing. So he's not adding any new effects. He's just making the effects on the cards you're playing better. Some of which are better than others. For instance, if you have a defend card, he's going to increase it by 2. I mean, you've stopped a town.
It could make a difference, but...
Yeah. It could, but that one's a bit more situational versus, like, you could get a second Badlands if you played a card that adds 1. If you have a card that's like remove X number of pieces, or an effect that's, if you're lucky enough, remove a city, you could just be like, I'm going to remove 2 of them. So yeah, the point I'm trying to make is there are some options on there that are better than others. And it does push him a little bit away from what he himself wants to do, without really clearly defining how he's going to do that within the realm of his spirit, because he's still not going to have a lot of card plays. He's still going to have a high energy output. So you might not spam majors, but you'll probably still pick up 1 or 2, I would say. Other than that, you're going to look for miners to have diversity in what you can upgrade. I do think it's maybe a bit worse because, again, you become reliant on what are the effects that the cards have, and I can only make those better. Versus just being able to go, this threshold makes this card just so much significantly better that I might as well do that instead. But I think if it is worse, it doesn't drop by a lot because you at least still have the bonus moon in any element to make up for it. But then the question is, where below? Have you played Intensify at all?
Only once. I did not like it. I really don't really want to play it again. So it doesn't feel good.
That's kind of where
It doesn't feel good.
No.
Maybe there's a way to make it good, and as per usual, tell us what your experience is and how we're doing it wrong. I'll give it another shot.
Yeah.
If you can explain to me why I should.
Because I don't know if your reason is the same as mine, but mine is, again, back to the whole, it takes away from what it feels like he wants to do.
Yeah, that's my big thing. This spirit feels like he's built around trying to obtain early major powers, and this is kind of the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give him the necessary tools to deviate.
To do it well.
Yeah. Like it gives him a way to deviate, but yeah, he doesn't. He's trying to hammer a screw.
Yeah,
it
takes away from his uniqueness without actually adding anything.
Yeah, it's like it's trying to hammer a screw. Is it possible? Yes. It's
not going to be a pretty after.
It doesn't do it a very good job. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. The final product is probably not going to be that impressive for all the work you put in.
Yeah. Is it? Do you think it's above sparking but below violence, or do you think it's just really close and next to him but below? Because I do feel like it's worse, but I don't know how worse, because increasing the effects is still technically nice and good. It's just the matter of, are you drawing the effects you want to multiply?
Yeah, that is. There's a lot of limitations involved. I think the big problem, though, is that, because I believe it only affects minors. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it is just per action.
Okay, so it can be his major. So he could still go for majors then. There's nothing strictly telling him he can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably in the ballpark here. I'd probably argue better than sparking. I don't know if it's better than
That's where I was originally pointing to. Was right there.
Yeah, I think the big problem, like I said, is it just doesn't feel.
Yeah.
I generally rather thresholds than the little.
Well, and generally thresholds are going to give you more than this is anyway. For instance, there's I'm not thinking of unrelenting growth, am I? Outside of the adding presence, it also adds wilds. Yeah. And its threshold adds 2 more wilds on top of that.
I believe that's 1 more wild and remove blight.
1 more wild and remove blight. Yeah. I feel like for just a couple more element tokens than 1 to get an additional 1 wild.
I want to rate cards now just so I can go on a tangent about unrelenting growth and how everyone who doesn't take that card is an idiot.
Because looking at this, if you were to play unrelenting growth and spend the green to increase it, you're not going to get your threshold, possibly. If you do, then it's better. But if you don't, you are getting to add only the 2 wilds. Oh, that's right, yeah. Because, no, I was looking at the wrong thing. I was looking at the add 2 destroyed presence, but it doesn't do that. It just adds presence and removes blight, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no. So best bet is you're just getting 2 wilds.
That would be a better...
that should already have enough wilds in that land.
That would be a better attachment to, say, Blazing Renewal. Because
maybe that's the one I'm thinking.
Because Blazing Renewal is the do 2 damage to all structures. The threshold is do 2 more damage to all structures. Or add 4 damage in total to the land. and then you return the 2 destroyed presents. So in that case, you could return 4 presents, nuke the land, and then add a green.
True. But most of the time, I feel like you're not going to have 4 destroyed presents sitting to the side, unless it's quite late game.
Yeah, unless you're in a very bad way, or if you're the lizard,
or if you're Panther.
No, you can't. It's not. His isn't destroyed. It's removed from the game.
Oh, sad.
With regrowth though, you can. But again, niche scenarios don't count.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good spot for him. It's not. I don't think it's a bad aspect. I want to say it is because I don't like it, but I feel like I can see the play and it's just not clicking for me. Something about it just feels off.
Yeah.
As for his other aspect, we have Mentor. I like bits of this and I don't like other bits. The first part is instead of his ability to discard instead of forgetting, he still has to forget. Instead of drawing 4, he draws 2 and he just gains them both. So he's essentially just drawing the top 2 of whatever power deck he is pulling from. Still has to forget for majors, though, instead of discarding. So that part, as we've talked about, is taken already. Was it? I always forget the version that we use. Was it consistently inconsistent? Or was it inconsistently consistent?
It's probably both.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was the second one. But it just makes him even more inconsistent because before it was kind of you're hoping for all the power cards that will line up, but you'll still have some semblance of say. This is just you draw 2. That's what you get. Deal with it. And you have no control or agency over that. So good luck getting the elements you would be looking for. However, there's kind of a weird, amusing plus side to that. And that comes in the second part of Mentor, which is as a fast power, you can target another spirit. For 1 wind, you can put a power card from your hand or discard into their hand. Which essentially offers you the ability. Essentially, your purpose is to be a support spirit in that situation. You're going to just dig through probably the major power deck because you can always cycle one of the majors you draw, get 2 more. It's always going to be a positive gain on that, and you're not actually going to lose stuff technically. But you're going to be passing other people power cards that they want.
To deal with your land because you can't.
Yes. Yeah. To help with the problems that you are causing by helping them. So a bit weird, but amusing.
I need some help over here. Can you cast this for me?
Yeah. Like I don't have the elements for this, but you do. Here, you take it. Just will you bring it over here? You're like next turn. His tier 2, 3 wind, 2 earth. Target spirit may play that power card now by paying its cost. Followed by tier 3, which is 1 sun, 4 wind, and 3 earth. So that they may repeat that power card once this turn by paying its cost. So it feels like the tier 2 and tier 3 are more geared towards if you're giving out minors, because paying a major power's cost 2 or possibly 3 times sounds abysmal. And like almost no one other than him can do it.
Only a small handful of spirits could actually afford that, depending on the exact power in question. But
yeah, and one of them is the one giving them away. And then he has a 4th one, which is just for 1 win, prepare an element marker matching an element on the power card, and then also prepare an element marker of your choice. So I think they added that to kind of make up for the fact that you are going to have such inconsistent draws. Getting essentially double the element markers is nice, especially if they're always locked to cards you're actually playing.
Which one of his innates did he give up the prepare element marker one, I believe?
No, he replaces observe the ever-changing world, which... Oh yeah, that is the one that prepares element markers.
Yeah.
Yeah, which that one was 1 moon, prepare 1, or I think 2 moon and then 1
I
wind.
believe it was, for
Two,
up to 3, depending on
how many
pieces
actions
you
happen.
change.
Yeah, in target land.
So he slows his element production down a little
yes
bit.
And no. I've always found it hard to get 3 actions to consistently trigger.
Yeah, but that only gives him 1 period.
This gives him 2.
Oh, it does?
He gets 1 based off of one of his power cards, and then he also just gets 1.
Oh, okay. So he's guaranteed 2.
Yes.
I suppose the other benefit, though, is that...
so he's essentially always getting the middle ground, and one of them always has to be something he has in play.
But I suppose the other value there is that since he is not as heavily focused on trying to like mastermind his major powers and build elements there, it means he's more likely to be able to hit, say, that 1 sun, 4 wind, 3 mountain, which is really difficult to hit without his element markers.
Oh yeah,
because he's probably going to be playing 2 cards for the vast majority of the game.
Well, in the minor power deck, there's roughly a 1/3 chance of pulling a 0 cost. Was it a 33% chance of 0 cost?
Roughly 1/3, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So every 1 or 2 minor power cards gained, because that would technically be 2 to 4 cards.
Yeah.
He should be getting a 0 cost to chuck someone's way.
It's not so much the 0 cost. I'm more just saying like the cost is in terms of elements is expensive.
Yeah.
But since he's not going to be as personally invested in major powers, he's probably still going to have 1. I'd hope. He kind of.
I would hope he has 1 or 2.
Yeah, he still kind of.
Yeah, he still has the card plays and the energy track.
Yeah, but he's still not going to be as invested, which means he has a little bit more leeway to prepare element markers for this ability rather than for his majors.
Yeah.
So even though he's only be playing 2 cards, this is still technically doable for him. Tough. It's a little tough, but it's doable and it can be done.
Yeah, it pushes you a little bit farther down your card play track, probably.
Yeah.
So I know he has at least 1 any element in his top.
Well, I believe it is off the top of my head here. It's 1, 2, 2. Spend 2 elements to gain an extra card play as many times as you want, and then 3 card plays. I believe is how his card plays goes.
You could technically run both this and intensify, and then just always have a moon in one of anything.
Yeah. The moon doesn't really help him with that. The any does, I guess. But
yeah, and it doesn't help him with anything on that because it's not a marker. He can't use it there. Yeah. I
don't hate it.
I guess rereading this, I would say it's either probably on par.
I don't hate it. I think his base is stronger, only because as we kind of were joking about I know we were joking about it, but it's also not far from the truth in that he's basically hunting down other people's cards for them.
Yeah.
So it means that
you don't have to worry about card draw. You can just keep putting presents out.
Yeah.
I'll supplement you.
Yeah, but the thing is that does mean that now he is sacrificing his own hand worth of cards. He's still probably going to have a major, maybe 2. It's going to be tougher to commit to 2 majors with that particular build. But he should still theoretically have a major because his impact on the board is going to be weak. But it does mean that because he's now further weakening his impact on the board, where he was otherwise reliant on 2 major powers to kind of compensate, it's going to be tough to hit the second major. So he's going to be more reliant on the other spirits to compensate for his board, meaning that, like we were joking about, he's going to give him a card just so they can hit the board with it, where he could have just cast it himself to deal with the problem. I know we were joking, but I don't think that's too far off from the truth, which as a result means that I don't feel comfortable.
He would be above.
I don't feel comfortable putting him above. I think he's got to be somewhere below his base self.
Yeah.
Where, I don't know. I don't know if intensity is better than it or not.
Because it is his early game is becoming worse with this.
I mean, as a support spirit, he's doing a lot of work. Like, it's really nice to be able to know that if you're a spirit, especially a spirit who maybe doesn't necessarily want to spend time on doing their growth option that gives them card plays, knowing that he's there to back them up is nice. Now, there are very few spirits who are like, I really don't want to use my gain card. But one I can think of right off the top of my head, like the Dahanche, her card gain is her reclaim. she really doesn't want to be doing that too frequently. And this, if you're theoretically playing this guy, he's just like, I got your back. Like, I'll keep.
Like, I have this card with Sun. I don't need it.
He's like, I can keep you going. Another one I can think of is the Fear guy, who typically wants to be looking for any excuse he can to do his Reclaim 1 and pull the major card he got through Call of Midnight Stream, I believe it's called.
I think so.
So he wants to be looking for any excuse to pull that card back. And that puts out a presence, but he's not getting any bonus cards. Well, again, there's several spirits who, the lizard looking at here. Again, I can go on for days. There's plenty of spirits who don't want to take their card draw ability because it's less beneficial than the other one. So again, as a support spirit, he becomes better with Mentor by being the card draw those spirits are looking for. But again, I don't know if he's not better than his base self. I just don't know where he falls in this scenario.
Yeah, I feel like violence is too good for him to be above that.
Yeah. I think I might put him below. I might feel comfortable there. I don't know if you would agree. Below Sparking.
I don't like Intensify being above it.
You don't? You think Mentor's better than Intensify?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. At least he still has a role that he can do well with Mentor.
Fair enough.
If you think it's below Sparking,
I don't know. I don't know enough. I don't know enough is the thing. I'm torn.
I'm willing to say Sparking is better than Intensify. And just call it there.
Do we want to move it Sparking up?
No, I will note before we make this a solid thing. This could be bias speaking, but
I don't know. I don't know. This is tough. This whole thing from basically violence to down to Shadow or to the Grim Reaper is kind of the same thing with Shadows, where it's like it's so tough. Like everything is so very close, or even again the Panther.
Everything kind of has a purpose. It fits kind of neatly into.
Yeah, and it's like we know that they're worse than X, but we don't know where Y. We don't have value for Y yet.
Like base shifting memory is major spam. Intensify is really poor minor spam, and Mentor is just support shifting.
Yeah. It's a tough one. We'll leave it there. Maybe we'll go over it when we're done here. Let's try and get through this, then we'll do some minor changes at the end here as we do.
Okay.
Stranded for the Grim Reaper. This is one we were debating about for a while. We couldn't really figure
I like
it out.
it.
I don't think it's bad. Because
I think it's better.
Yeah, as we discussed, that our discussion off screen was always like, twice during the fast, twice during the slow. So you're guaranteed every turn to have four movements.
Yeah.
But under normal conditions, you're going to be playing a roughly minimum of 2 cards, maybe except for the first turn or 2 of the game. And you're going to be triggering 2 innates. And you can move your presence per action you take. So it's kind of a wash. The difference is just when you get to move it is whereas this is guaranteeing you can move it in the fast and in the slow. The other ones are restricted to when your powers go off, which for him admittedly is almost exclusively slow with a few exceptions.
Yeah. So this is slightly less restrictive. And when I think we also established it was more moves early on, but then once you hit late game,
once you get 3 cards, you'll have 3 cards, 4 cards, 5 cards. You're gonna
you're gonna blow
out of the water. Yeah. The advantage, I think, the bigger advantage, in my opinion, with this one is the isolation. Isolation's already a very powerful mechanic.
Well, I think the way that
I would argue
the movement was the icing.
I think the movement was designed as a way to balance the fact that they were giving you the ability to isolate, because they didn't want you to just be able to move freely around the board every time you used an action and be able to isolate one land. They're like, we're going to make sure that we're going to restrict your ability to move a little bit, just a little bit.
Like you have to decide before.
Yeah, but you get to isolate a land. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like a handful of the other aspects we've talked about, where I don't feel it's strictly better or worse, because what you're giving up is the ability to just blow across the land like an actual like the wind itself.
So rules wise, yes. But if we're looking at it from a early versus late game.
Oh yeah, the early game is better. It improves his early game, and it doesn't hurt his late game because isolate is isolate. It does restrict his mobility in the late game, but again, isolate. So like I said, it doesn't make him strictly better or worse. It just kind of, I would argue, I guess, kind of fixes a little bit of his early game, which again is where he struggled the most. We kind of agreed on that. He takes a.
But then that would be.
Yeah.
Because if there's no downside, you would stay in the middle if there's also no upside. But there is an upside, and that is his early game is getting better.
A little bit.
Would bump him up. Better.
But I still feel like it's a lot like, say, the Panther, where like what you're gaining is it's basically taking what his weakness was and kind of fixing it, but it doesn't strictly make him better for it.
Yeah.
So kind of yeah, I'll agree. Yeah, I can put Stranded above him. I don't think it does enough to change what his where I just slapped him there above him.
Like I think that's okay.
But I think it's kind of like Panther, where technically speaking, it's only there because you can't overlap these things. You can't stack them on top of each other and say it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, that one went fast. Lightning round.
Yeah.
No. Well, I mean, actually,
I'll let you do that one because you've done it, and I'll do this one because I've played this one.
I played both of them.
But I didn't play that. Take that
one. Because I do my research and I play all of them. Okay, Tactician. So 4th Thunderspeaker replaces your 3rd growth option, which under normal circumstances is put a presence out at, I believe, range 3. Might be range 2. Might be range 2. It's 2 or 3.
It's 3.
And gain 3 energy. You now get gain.
Is it the one that you have to put it in a land with Dahan?
No.
Then it's probably range 2.
I think it's range 3. I don't remember the exact range, but it's put out 1 presence and you gain 3 energy. The range I don't remember.
Because I think if it was farther, it would have more restriction on it versus shorter range would probably have less restriction. Would be my assumption.
I don't know. It could be.
I played Dahanchik once, so
I don't remember her growth option off the top of my head. But yeah, it replaces the 3rd growth option with gain a power card, add a presence at range 0, gain 1 energy instead of the usual 3, but you also gain your choice of fire or sun element. I'd hate to say this is necessary because obviously the Dahanchik is a monster before the aspects came out, but I personally like this one because I don't feel like I was ever using growth option 3 for the energy gain. I mean, maybe the first time you use it in order to make sure you have enough energy to trigger manifest, but all future uses of it were, it felt bad. It felt like it was, you didn't really, like, you were like, it was generally like, oh, I only have 1 presence left on my track, may as well use this.
Yeah. Now there's actual value.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more value to it. Because as we discussed a little bit already previously with Mentor, the Dahanchik struggles to get card plays because the only way not card plays, but to get cards because the only way she can gain cards without this new Tactician is when she reclaims, she gets 2 of them. And this is a way to help compensate for that. In addition, the sun bonus sun and or fire is pretty valuable because it means that even at 2 card plays, you can trigger quite easily your lead the ferocious assault. So I like this one. I don't know if it's strictly, again, I don't know if it's strictly better. I like it more than the other one, and I would typically choose to play this one whenever I play the Dahanchik.
Do you feel like it's kind of another one where it's just an overlap?
I don't feel
like
it's
more about fixing an issue than buffing or nerfing.
Yeah, I feel like it's fixing it. I'll put her below because I think I'll put her below only because while I do like it more, it's one of those things where I feel like this is just greater than games going whatever. Here's a way for people who are not as experienced to have an easier time with the spirit. When in truth, like I said, it doesn't really do a whole lot for her.
Yeah.
So I think that's fair to put her there.
Warrior. I get to whinge a little bit more about Incarna being added to spirits who don't need them. So Warrior replaces Lead the Furious Assault. You also replace one of your presents with your Incarna and a Dahan. And you lose your manifestation to gain Called Bloodshed. My first thought was that that wouldn't be a super big deal, and I overall don't think it is. Yes, you're going to lose out on a bit of damage. But overall, in my time playing it, that didn't really feel like the issue for it. The biggest hindrance to this aspect is the Incarnate and how restrictive it becomes on range. When you move Dahan, you can bring it with, so it is at least mobile, and it will deal 1 damage at the Incarnate after it moves, with a specification of max 1 damage per action. Oh, yeah. So you can't gather it, do a damage, push it, do a damage. You only get to do it once at some point during that. Target land has to have both your Incarnate and Dahan. For 1 sun and 2 fire, you get 1 fear if towns or cities are present, and you do 1 damage. At 3 sun and 3 fire, you get 1 damage per Dahan. I would say the pro to this is rather than having manifestation just hit 1 land really hard, you can now call to bloodshed 1 land and lead the warriors to battle in the other. So it does give you a little bit better targeting priority, I would say, or however you would want to phrase that. However, it's just at the cost of the lead the warriors to battle is going to be a bit more restrictive and requires a bit of setup before you can actually successfully pull it off. I don't think it's a bad aspect. I think it's just it loses a little bit of what you can do with manifestation, because at least you have an open target. You can get rid of the lands that you need. I think still. Oh yeah. I mean, there's not really a downside other than you just have to target at your Incarna. Oh, okay.
Although I would argue, from my experience with it, and I don't know how you feel in comparison, I feel that the new, the do damage per Dahan, rather than having the destroy per Dahan, and you're giving up your ability that would otherwise just do damage per Dahan / your presence. They basically took manifestation and converted lead the ferocious assault into manifest. Arguably worse version of manifest, which means you're technically lost 2 powers.
Because the way I kind of looked at it was they split manifestation into 2. They essentially said, because it was manifestation is each Dahan deals
damage equal to your presence in that land.
Yeah. So like if you have 1 presence, 1 Dahan gets to do 2 damage, or is it?
If you had say 2 presence and 2 Dahan, it's 4 damage. Each Dahan's doing 2 damage. If you had 3 presence, each Dahan does 3 damage, and it's 2 Dahan would do 6 damage.
Gotcha. But I feel like that has the same issue as the sun. It's a lot of damage in one area. You don't really need it there.
Right, but now you can't manifest and lead the ferocious assault, which would be 2 separate.
What does lead the ferocious assault do?
It's the one where you get to destroy towns and cities. For each pair of Dahan, destroy a town. For each triplet of Dahan, destroy a city. And again, you would have 2 separate targets at that point. So you're giving up 1 power. You're combining, in my opinion, 2 powers into 1 and losing the value of being able to split that damage. Okay. I would say it's worse than the Panther. I don't think it's like so bad that she's like not good. In fact, I'd probably even put her below Volcano.
Maybe even Behemoth?
Quite possibly. I think he does a better job splitting damage. I think she just loses a lot.
Yeah.
And the fact that she loses one of her, I mean, yes, I will admit the minor power she gets does do some damage. But it's you're losing so much value for that one. The ability to move the Incarna and do the 1 damage per action, it kind of feels like basically playing the Panther in the terms of that's basically ranging Hunt.
Yeah.
But the Panther just does that better. Ranging Hunt just does what the Incarna does on a far grander scale. Not only because it lets him move around like she does with the Dahan with his beast, but it means that he's also shit beasts all over the land. So when that event flips that says beasts do 1 damage or generate 1 fear or destroy 1, like he's getting so much more value than she is when it, for moving her Incarna around.
Oh, yes. All right. So yeah, I think that is a fitting spot for her. Now we move on to
to the worst spirit in the game. Can they make the worst spirit in the game better?
So
I mean, let's be honest, it's not hard. We'll just
I'm going to start with Might.
That's fair.
I don't think I've played this one. I think I've only played the one that I really like. Have you played this one at all?
I believe I played this one a couple times. Yeah, because this is
it's probably worth noting. All 3 of these are vast improvements of what he was.
It's not hard. Yeah, the bar was so low. People were being asked not to trip over it when they walk into the room.
Yeah, covered up with tape like an electrical cord.
So yeah, this one replaces a special rule, Earth Vitality, which means you no longer grant 3 defend with your Sacred Sight, and
no.
Yeah, no tears were shed for the loss of that. Instead, you get a fast power that targets yourself, which is you may play an additional power card by paying 1 energy plus its cost, which sounds really weird. Like for 1 grass, just play an additional power card, but keep in mind the biggest issue he had triggering his other innate that has 2 was the fact that it was hard for him to play 2 cards. And now he has the ability to play 2 cards. All it costs him is 1 extra.
It's still taxing him for getting to do what every other spirit essentially gets to do.
Yeah. He actually gets to use his first innate. They gave him an innate that enables him to use his innate power instead. Because they couldn't just give him an innate that said, hey, we errated him. Just, tape this over his name.
I really don't know what Vital Strength did to deserve this.
Now, granted, the second one is actually pretty good, though. For 1 grass, you get to trigger your first innate. Fantastic. I'm not knocking that at all. He needed that. It just seemed weird that they had to give him a whole separate innate instead of, like I said, just errata him, where it's like, hey, pretend it says this instead for the cost of his innate. But yeah, so for 1 sun and 2 earth, you can do 1 damage with each damage dealing power you use this turn. By default, he has 1, so
woo.
Cool. I guess if you collect a few others, there's some value to be found here.
It's an improvement.
Yeah. I mean, he's in Earth, so Earth has the occasional damage dealing power. Sun and grass, sort of, not as common. Maybe
if you're Treebeard, maybe.
Yeah. if you get your sun and grass mixed with fire or earth or beast or any element that's not sun or grass by itself, you can find damage. We're joking, but the truth is you can find damage for this. It's just it's not going to be necessarily in the elements he wants that card to be in. Then you can, if you improve your grass from 1 to 2 and your mountain from 2 to 3, you can do an additional 1 damage. If you triggered the first level, you're now doing 2 damage. And again, I'm trying not to knock it. It's just, as we just said, he's not necessarily going to have a lot of damage dealing powers.
It would probably be nice if they swapped out one of his unique powers.
Yeah, he can find those cards. Again, he's in Earth, which has its own source of damage. But Sun and Grass do not. usually do damage unless they're mixed with fire or maybe earth in some cases. So he can find his cards. You're just gonna have to do a little bit of digging.
I mean that fourth.
Yeah, the fourth one grass or 1 sun, 3 grass. Gain a power card. That'll help you do your digging. Because, like I said,
you gotta hit it at some point.
Yeah, it's not impossible for him to get damage. And again, you don't have to get grass, and you don't have to get sun, and you don't have to get grass, sun, and earth all together. You can take a power that's just, fire, earth, and wind that says do 2 damage. It doesn't, nothing strictly says you have to get his elements. And the problem is that when you take those cards that aren't in his element, and as we just discussed, it's difficult for him to trigger the innate powers he already had. Means that you're now making it that much harder by taking a card that's not in your elements to trigger your abilities.
Well, and if you're taking cards that aren't in your elements, you've already traded your special rule for that second innate, and you're not using either second innate. So really, you're just gaining a power card to not have a special rule if you don't take in his elements.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Which is weird to say that's better, but it still is.
Yeah. Again, the bar was set so low. He does make it up into D tier.
I think there, yeah. Maybe above layer, but we know my opinion on layer.
Yeah, we'll do that because God damn it, he needs something.
He'll get something with this next one being resilient.
Oh my god,
this
is what he needed from the beginning.
Sacred sites. It instead will take it will take 8 additional damage to add blight to the land. So it now takes 10 damage
on average or on base level
to add blight, which is an insane amount of damage to have to deal.
Yeah, we've talked about how invaders are more likely in higher difficulties to do more damage, but even 10, that's a steep requirement even for the invaders.
Yeah,
it's like I said, they can do more than 3, more than 4.
Well, that's essentially
more than 5.
If you were to have 2 cities and 2 towns, that would be 10 damage.
Yep.
That's a decently large amount of stuff to have to build into a land.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it doesn't protect your Dahan because it's just increasing the blight threshold. Yeah. So your Dahan are all still dead.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, if you compare it to like I said, a lot of the invaders and their ability to do bonus damage, like Habsburg builds a town, pulls in the town, and even if it would have otherwise built a city, which means instead builds 2 towns, means it has 3 towns, pulls in a 4th, and has an explorer, we'll say 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. They still can't get over that hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
9 damage they can do in 1 turn, and they still can't get over this guy's hurdle.
I think the one downside to this is that he builds sacred sites
so slowly. He is praying for anyone to have a proliferation card.
Yeah.
He's like, somebody get unrelenting growth, please.
So, once he gets the sacred site, cool, you're set. You probably don't have to worry about it as long as you're taking damage cards to keep them below a certain number. But don't expect this on a lot of lands the majority of the time. Not until late game. And even then, I feel like you're only going to have probably 4, maybe 5 sacred sites if you're hitting late game. He still at least puts out a presence with all of his growth options, yes? Yeah. It's just, if you've got, say, 12 rounds, you're getting a total of 6 sacred sites. Yeah. And that also meant the game ended.
Yeah. Basically, as I said, this is what he should have been from the word go.
Maybe not 10. That might have been a high point for when we didn't have adversaries yet. But
well, adversaries were in the base game. You had England.
Were they?
You had England, France, and Sweden were the first 3.
Oh, okay.
Then Habsburg was added in Habsburg was added in Jagged Earth along with Russia. And Scotland was added in the second promo pack with the bird and the chimera. I know it's weird, right?
Oh wait, yeah, no, because I don't actually have the physical Scotland.
Yeah, because you need to get Feather and Flame still, don't
you? Yes.
The only way you can play it is with Which one was that?
That was the 10 damage threshold for. Resilience. Yes.
Yeah. So again, this is what he wanted to be, and thankfully, it moves him from literally detrimental to have on the island to congrats. Here.
I think it's better than might.
Yeah,
I think it's much better than might.
Fair. It's probably better than immense.
I think it's better than. I think it's better than that person.
Many Minds.
Many Minds is just fear and defend. He is just good luck.
Yeah, but Many Minds' ability to move the beast into location to defend other lands. Again, he has to have the sacred site you're bitching about. It's very low. Many Minds can defend any land it needs to on each turn.
That's fair.
I will give it better than immense because as we talked about, immense is just the bird is already kind of the bird is already in an awkward position, and this just slows it down.
Well, I mean, he dropped a full 2 tiers, 2.5 actually. So yeah. Right. And my favorite, what I think is the best out of all three, and a little bit sad for a reason I'll explain. Nourishing. It replaces your Earth's vitality. Also replaces your year of something. Replaces it with voracious growth, though. After you get a major power, you gain a minor power. Cool. That is very nice. It'll help supplement your hand a little bit. You also gain another innate, imbue with nourishing vitality. It cannot target blighted lands. Generally shouldn't be a problem. Fast power with a range of 1 from a sacred site. For 1 water and 1 grass, which is very easy to get, I've found, especially starting with voracious growth. You can gather up to 1 Dahan. And then where it starts to get a bit better, 1 water and 2 grass to add a vitality. Now, vitality is nowhere near the best token in the game. But the unfortunate part is that unfortunate part is that I find him to be a better spirit at utilizing vitality than the person who introduced it, Tree Grandma. And that is good for him, but really unfortunate for her that her whole gimmick got given to somebody else. Or at least better. Because he doesn't have to worry about stacking into land. He can spread it wherever it's needed. And is not generally restricted to... he's not as restricted to where he puts it if he wants to scale into the later game. And then for 1 water, 1 earth, and 2 grass, each Dahan gets +2 health while in target land, and if it has 2 Dahan, you add a 3rd, which really helps keep those Dahan alive. I almost want to say he's like a weird hybrid of the Fear and Tree Grandma, because he's putting out the vitality to prevent the blight, and he's buffing the Dahan to make sure that they might survive and deal damage back. The one difference is he technically doesn't put out as much vitality as Tree Grandma does.
Wait, you said Fear guy? Did you mean
the Fuhrer?
Oh, the Fuhrer.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. They weren't there for that. Okay, because we didn't have a nickname for Hearth Vigil at the time. So yeah, like I said, we have so many weird nicknames we come up for these. And we didn't have one for Hearth Vigil when we made the first video, so now we're all of a sudden yelling the Fuhrer. The Fuhrer is our new nickname for Hearth
Vigil. But yeah, so overall, I think the strongest of all of his aspects, and honestly makes him an actually good spirit. I don't think he really has any downsides, I would say, with this.
I would say that's enough. I would probably put him in the ballpark of River here.
Maybe below Teeth.
Definitely below
Somewhere below Teeth.
Teeth is
the worm.
I just don't know. Yeah, I just don't know where. Probably better than Amorphous, but is he?
Yes, better than Amorphous. It's going to be somewhere.
Where relative to
within
to River?
I think pull out River stuff.
I think Sunshine's a little better.
Personally, I don't know.
I like the support aspect that it provides. Just the ability to just be crapping out fucking energy to all your allies.
Fair, but this is just. He's really strong with it.
Because
the vitality, adding the vitality is essentially like him having that threshold of 10, except I can take any amount of damage and it's just not going to blight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't want to be too picky. A lot of the spirits, especially now that we're getting into aspects, are starting to become the barrier between each one is becoming so narrow thin that this is probably not.
I think it's a matter of him being able to play aggressive and actually technically deal damage.
I think the big thing is that regardless of the case, even if you take Mike, the weakest of his are what we would argue is the weakest of his aspects. He's still no longer actively detrimental to having him on the board.
I will genuinely in the future be actually playing some games of Vital Strength with Nourishing, because it is just like, again, his other aspects are also all good and functional. It's just my favorite, but I will actually be playing him because I didn't play him at all before playing that aspect.
All right. So last, we're just gonna do some minor housekeeping here. Anything that we might want to change around. For example, this is one I noticed as we were rating resilience. If we have many minds below the tree eyes, and I've been playing a little bit of both. I've been playing a lot of the spirits that we ranked kind of lower, just because I was trying to get even a better feel. Like, to see if I truly agree with our position. And I will say, I am personally willing to move many minds up one, only because it's faster than this spirit.
Yes.
He doesn't have as much defend, but he will get more card plays and more energy and
I also think he gets more fear too, doesn't he?
I think he has more fear, yeah. But he just plays faster, and we value that. So I want to move him up above him.
I'm okay with that. I fully agree.
Let's see here. Like I think Amorphous being above Travel, that's another one we were kind of debating about. I don't know.
Which one, Amorphous?
Amorphous was the infinite range, or not infinite range. It was the he could jump from.
Oh, the one that I.
Yeah, he could jump to Dahan versus Travel.
Yeah. Or just shift to an adjacent land versus Travel for River.
Yeah, where it can move Dahan along a contiguous path. I think Amorphous might be better than Travel.
I found Travel. I do think I would say so. Because Travel is the one where, for your sacred sites, you've got to have 4 more Dahan and defend 1.
Yeah. Let's see here. Anything else?
I feel like most of this is pretty decent.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Partially because we already kind of had an idea going into this. Obviously, we didn't have to go ground up.
Yeah. I think we're looking okay for the most part. I think I am satisfied with saying, at least for now, this is more or less what our tier list is going to look like. And we, of course, reserve the right to change it. Not we're necessarily going to have an update video.
Yeah.
But theoretically, we could have an update video as we discuss this some more.
I do like that we were also able to keep it to where each section has a roughly equal amount of spirits. It feels very balanced aesthetically.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this particular list. I think we got all our movements we needed to make.
Yep. Yeah, there's nothing else I think I would change, unless you're seeing something.
No, I'm very happy. I will call this our tier list of spirits based on how quickly they can proliferate, how powerful they are, preferably in the early game versus the rest of the game. How well they are at, winning their board in a 4-player game and being able to jump over to other people's boards and help them out as needed. So yeah, this is I think this is pretty good. I don't know how to end this.
Well,
stay tuned.
I wish they didn't do Incarna all that much for some of these.
Yeah, I guess stay tuned. We'll probably make another tier list at some point because we're absolutely obsessed with this game to the point where they should probably have us sanctioned.
Yeah, what are we thinking about doing next? Adversaries, majors, minors? Should we start ranking the wooden pieces, the quality?
We are going to have a lot of fun with this. I love this game.
It's an absolute blast.
All right. Thanks for watching and all that fun stuff. We're gonna go ahead and get out of here because I don't know how to end this.